It's podcast time for you and me. It's podcast time tonight. It's Friday. It's the first week of July. We got some fun and exciting news to chat about tonight. Among other things, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Almostinagreement.com. Voter Guide 23 is coming up. We had a mayoral candidate disqualified. That was exciting. Need to call Chris Davis. There's your mention. Anyway, favorite podcast writer, like, share, friend, follow, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Do the same there. Help us get the word out. Me and Mr. Scott Barker from the Compass are working on trying to get some debates together for this coming cycle. That's a little ways off, but we'll make more announcements on that as we're working on it. And yeah, so midsummer action here in the city of Knoxville and other associated things. So we'll chat from there. We'll talk to you guys soon. Wait, that's the end outro. I'm not doing outro. What am I doing? All right, it's been a week. Here we go. We're getting started after the intro ends. We'll talk to you guys soon. Yeah, like as soon as the intro's over. All right, you're right.
Still works.
Poorly, but works. You good?
Okay.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Hey.
What's new? Anything exciting?
No, nothing exciting.
Nothing exciting. All right. Well, I don't know. I got a couple of different things going on in the super local. Did you follow this? I got to remember her name so I say it correctly.
Probably not.
Brooklyn Belk story.
No.
Mr. What's his name? Mr. KPD Chief
Paul Noel.
Mr. Noel put her in as like, because I mean his whole first year it's all been cultural issues, this, that, and the other. He was hired to, clean up some of the issues inside KPD and stuff like that, and he was his hire. This Brooklyn lady was his hire to head what is essentially Internal Affairs, new name kind of thing, like officer accountability programs and stuff like that. And she made it 4 months and said deuces.
I think I may have seen something about somebody stepping down.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of talk. I mean, realistically, it's a lot of talk. It's like, because Noel and some of the top brass spokespeople have been mentioning, it's like, well, we knew we weren't going to have her for forever for this job. It's like you certainly were counting on more than 4 months, though, right? And so they're refusing to answer that part of the question. Like, we knew she wasn't going to be here forever, but everybody was pretty sure you were expecting her to be here longer than this,
right?
And so there's all sorts of rumor mill stuff going on about why and whatnot, and there's no real answers yet. She hasn't come out and said it. There was that sergeant that quit a couple months ago, whom was in internal affairs of the old style and basically didn't get rehired to stay a detective in internal affairs in this kind of changeover process and stuff like that, and wrote like a scathing kind of open letter to the city of Knoxville / the citizens of Knoxville, talking shit about the police department and what they're doing and stuff like that, whom the police department immediately put her under an internal affairs investigation, but mostly just because that officer had been fairly obvious about some references that may not be public information kind of thing. So it's kind of a classified leak investigation into her in her process of, fuck you guys, I'm out of here, and here's why.
All right.
And so basically it was like, if you know anybody who's, if you pay attention to KPD at all, you know exactly who she's talking about in this letter. And it's been a month or so ago, so I forgot the totals of it, but she basically like points finger at a few places here and there, and this Belt character being one of them. And
generalizations or any specifics?
I mean, there were some specific parts of stories. Again, I don't know what's going on, but apparently persons who do like, their references are pretty thinly veiled, I guess is the moral of the story.
I mean, could you generalize what her letter was based on?
No, it was just like, you guys suck, and all these changes are sucky, and because like part of it, I guess, like one of the big parts of it, the complaint was that essentially, the old style had a very like black and white kind of, you as an officer commit or do action X, this is the, whatever. Like one of the big things that I think this was part of her complaint, I don't remember exactly, but one of the big things in play that people were talking about is that the KPD, when you go in and put in your application to be a KPD officer, they go through a background check and stuff like that. And that used to be the old version, the pre-Noel era version. That background check went through Internal Affairs, and Noel moved that over into the HR section of it, which makes total sense. You know, but like the old version of it was like, you know, if you had, like, because, you know, background checks are two-sided usually. It's like, you know, hey, you're applying for a job, the background check, what are you going to see on your background check? They ask you that, whether it's a verbal conversation or they ask you to write down anything, or if you have any prior convictions for anything kind of stuff. And so like the old Internal Affairs reasoning is if you lie on that, you're out. And it was a very like procedural, like this is the way we do things.
Right.
And so Noel's take on it, it's like, well, you know, like Max told his story about the Ninja Stars when he was a kid. Remember that story?
No.
Him and some buddies were like, when he was like 15, were like out in the woods screwing around doing stuff, and they were running, or they ended up running from the cops for no reason. The cops catch up to him, and like they cite him for like a weapon because he had Ninja Stars in his pocket.
Yeah.
And, you know, he went through before the judge. The judge was like, yeah, it's not that big a deal, moving on. And then when he went into the Marine Corps, and the background check the Marine Corps did, they found it. And he was like, I thought that was a, you know, sealed record minor kind of thing. I didn't think I needed to tell them about that. If I thought I would have told them, but I didn't think I needed to, but it came back up. And so by KPD old standards, it would have been like, if you're lying about something in your records, that means you're trying to hide it. Not maybe you forgot about it, or maybe you have a reason to not tell us because you were told that record was sealed and nobody got to see it anyway.
Right.
You know, and so like essentially the broader strokes of the conversation is that it's not as black and white as far as what some of the rules are anymore. And that is one of the concerns that this sergeant had voiced, is that, you know, if at the end of the day everything comes back to Noel's desk and he gets to make the decision. Internal Affairs does the investigation, presents the investigation, and Noel is the the judge and jury of the trial of an officer that's going through Internal Affairs. That's the new version. And since there's no
something
strict,
like that would kick that high up as far as the final decision.
For the decision on disciplinary action goes through Noel's office. Maybe not him personally, but maybe he has somebody at the top of his office. Maybe that's who this Belk character was supposed to be. I'm not exactly sure. But essentially, some of the things that he's done is kind of stripped away if X happens, punishment C is the result. Where it's more of a, well, if X happens, but, you know, it's situational and it makes sense and that kind of thing, I might let it go, I might not let it go kind of deal. And that's one of the complaints. Because, I mean, to me, I get the idea of the complaint. It's like, well, if it's basically a judgment call every time on Noel's, what's the chances that it's going to end up being fair as it breaks out? You know, it's very unlikely that over time it's going to be fair, because it's going to be an officer that he's had other problems with, and he has a tainted view of this officer because the officer's had issues in the past, or, you know, I'm not saying he is or isn't, but maybe Chief Noel's racist, and if it's a black officer, he's going to be harder on him. If it's a white officer, he's not. Or maybe Chief Noel's trying to be proactive in the other way, and he's going to be harder on white cops than black cops because he wants to show that he's not racist, not that one or the other is being punished equitably for what they did, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
I guess. I mean, I could see it being, or I think I would be okay with leaving a little bit of wiggle room, and as far as just kind of an appeal kind of recourse of like, hey, you've been cited for this, and you're like, okay, well, there were, you know, mitigating circumstances that caused me to do this or that, or why I was cited for this or that.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of it being like, well, no, you did this. And it's like, well, there was a reason that I did that.
Right. I mean, I think that's reasonable. As I kind of see both sides of this kind of story,
right.
And that it's reasonable as well. It's like, you know, well, in the situation, I used a slur that maybe I shouldn't have as an officer, but the situation was getting out of control, and I had to regain attention, and nobody was listening to me, and I was yelling, so I said something terrible just to get everybody to shut up and listen, and then I recoursed from there. I don't know. I'm making one up at the top of my head.
Okay. Odd example.
I don't know. It's just the first thing that popped in my head as I was running through it. It's like, because that's what, I mean, 90% of IA cases start or apparently are like, you know, just cops being rude and dickheads and shit like that, more than it is actual like violations of policy or criminal acts that a cop does.
I've had a civilian complaint against an officer for this or that.
Right. Which Knoxville, at least, well, Knoxville is now the model for the statewide non-governmental oversight of the police department, and a lot of those cases go into the police department oversight committee thing, when they're not criminal or procedural or policy specific. If it's just this cop is being a dick and they go talk to the victim and they talk to the officer and they get to do that outside of the actual police department now.
Huh.
Well, not now. That's how Knoxville's done it for a while, but the whole state is going to do it that way now. But I don't know. I mean, to me, like, I guess, depending on what it is, if it's a criminal act that a police officer does, they should go through the criminal system like the rest of us. But again, I don't know the specifics on that part of it. But anyway, this Belk thing is a subset inside that story in this little that's just, she did the job for 4 months. It's got to be like, it's hard not to assume that either she's getting a lot of hate from officers at the position because they have, not that it's because of her, it's just the officers hate the position. They don't like the changes that Noelle's putting in place, and they're taking that out on her.
Possible.
And she wasn't expecting that as part of the job. She was expecting people to be a little bit more on board with it. Or
it's one of those weird things when you kind of like, bring in a, quote unquote, like outsider to then kind of revamp or try to retool. Right. You automatically, they take that as an assumption like, okay, they think that we're all doing something wrong. So you're already in that defensive stance against someone coming in trying to say like, hey, I think we could do things better.
And you take an organization like a police department, and not just Knoxville's, just general police departments at large, who tend to have an us and them mentality in the first place. And now that's a new boss is taking their side, not the them side, not the us side. You're supposed to be on our side because you're our boss. You're not supposed to be on the them side. Right.
I mean, generally in most police departments, the internal affairs are kind of seen as the others, and that whole
everybody hates them any damn way. Yeah. But
it's like you're all just a bunch of narcs and rats.
Yeah, but it's I mean it goes well because you're crossing the blue line, and the blue line's all that matters to some of those guys. Anyway, I thought that was I think it's an interesting developing story because it like she quit last Friday, the morning that we taped last time, and so it was quite surprising, and there was very little conversation about it because there was no time to have a conversation about it. Yeah. And even throughout this entire weekend, a lot of people asking a lot of questions to a lot of different players. There's not really been a lot of clarification on what's going on.
I think I may have seen the headline, but didn't read the story on
it. There's a new conversation about passenger rail service in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, saw that.
I'm interested. I don't know. I didn't realize. I guess I did realize. Maybe I did. I don't know. There is no. You can't get it there. Even if you were using freight lines or any combination of whatever, you can't get from here to Nashville.
Right.
Without going to Chattanooga first.
Right.
And so, like, as much as one of my little joke, like, if I was the king of Tennessee and could do whatever I want, was I'd go Memphis to Tri-Cities with a Chattanooga spur that goes to Knoxville and Nashville. But that Nashville to Knoxville's a little tough.
Yeah.
there's a
plateau.
There's a whole plateau kind of thing in the way. I didn't realize there's no freight that crosses that. Like, I figured there'd be at least one that maybe took a long little weird way around and came down the plateau like at an angle instead of going straight off a cliff, obviously. But nope. Like, you can get to Crossville on this side and Cookville on the other side, and then there's nothing between the two. And so, but apparently, like, it's this big federal state investigatory group that's getting put together to look into. They're talking about putting a Bristol to Chattanooga, a Chattanooga or an Atlanta to Nashville, but inside the state it would be a Chattanooga to Nashville,
right?
And then Nashville to Memphis. And so, like, right now, Memphis is the only part of Tennessee that already has some rail service because there's a New Orleans to Chicago that stops at Memphis.
Huh. Part of Amtrak, I guess.
Yeah. Which I was a little confused. The Compass guys were talking about it today. I was under the impression that when the consolidated rail thing happened in like the 1930s or 40s or whenever it was, where they basically privatized all railroads, and the states and federal government basically gave all their railroads over to the freight companies. The deal was, we're going to give you millions and millions of dollars in land and existing rail that you can use for your freight stuff, but if we want to put an Amtrak passenger train on it, you have to make space. That doesn't seem to be what's actually happening.
I mean, as far as making space, because freight always gets right of way over passenger.
I don't know. I mean, it's the freight owns it. There is no passenger company that owns it. The only passenger rail line in existence is Amtrak, and that's a state, or that's a federal. It's not a private company. It's a federal
right. That was something I
entity.
learned like last year.
Yeah.
I always thought they were their own company, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I mean, but still, it'd be cool because like Virginia's, because like all the different states have their own little input on this game, and so I guess simultaneous to us, Virginia is talking about extending some basically DC to Bristol. So theoretically, you could get DC to Atlanta coming through Knoxville. And I mean, hopefully,
cool.
you know, I mean, I'd like to see realistically if they're going to do it, because we go through Atlanta and go down to Florida. Like, give me to Orlando on a train. Let me take it'd be like a 2-day trip. But
Does Atlanta already have a?
Atlanta has some. I don't know where all it goes though.
Georgia's pretty flat. I mean, you've got the mountains in the northeast side of it, but outside of that, it's pretty flat.
West side, northwest side. Be the west side of the state. Northwest.
Northeast.
Yeah, northeast would be like Savannah on the ocean.
Sorry, what? You know where Savannah is in Georgia?
I guess not.
That would be
Athens.
southeast.
I'm sorry. I was thinking Athens. My apologies. Athens is over.
Athens, I believe, is south of Atlanta.
Damn it. All right. I don't know my Georgia then either. Fine.
There's Augusta that is northeast of Georgia.
Pulling up the map, people. Here we go.
As far as like the mountains,
Augusta is due east. Savannah is on the ocean, but it's southeast.
that's like mid, but still.
I mean, it's
It's about northeast as far as like where the mountains is. I would consider that the
all
northeastern
of
part of
North,
the state.
right? All of North Georgia is the beginning of the
Yeah.
Smokies
Yeah.
or the Appalachians. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the map of Georgia. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll move on to other stuff.
So I don't know why you want to argue with me on
I know you're
the state
from
I came
Georgia.
from.
We had a discussion during.
I know
during
not to
Wheel
do
tonight.
that about Wisconsin.
We had a discussion during Wheel tonight about Vanna. She was a former Miss Georgia, but she's from South Carolina.
Really?
She's from Myrtle Beach. Learned that this evening.
See Pat Sajak's retire next
I
year?
did see that. This is where they're still doing it. We're in season 40 right now. He said he'll tape season 41, and that's it.
He's been a part of it the whole time?
I guess. I don't know. He started as a San Diego weatherman. Like he was like legitimately the what's his name from Anchorman?
Ron Burgundy.
No, Ron Burgundy was the anchor.
Oh, Steve Carell.
It's Paul Rudd. No, Steve Carell. Yeah, that's right. Paul Rudd was one of the other ones, but Paul Rudd was a weatherman, but he wasn't for the same station. Stay classy, San Diego. All right, so the other one that was a big topic this week locally is that Sycamore Institute, they actually put this out late last week. The 21 deaths by gun stats for the state of Tennessee for 2021.
2021. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of little interesting subsets of it. Just the generic bulk one would be there's 1,569 total deaths in the state of Tennessee that basically the coroner's report says that it was a gun death. So you got shot somehow. And so 46% homicide, 52% suicide, 2% unintentional undetermined. Which, what's the math on that? 2%. 1% would be 15 and a half, so 31-ish. 31-ish people in Tennessee died unintentionally or undetermined. Yeah. And my assumption is that police shootings count as undetermined. A self-defense shooting counts as undetermined. Like because it's not a homicide. Like if you kick my door in and come in and trying to rape and murder me and my family, and I shoot you, that is not a homicide.
Yeah, but I don't think it would be considered undetermined.
Well, I don't know what else I don't know where else it would fit in the thing because it's not a suicide.
Right.
The only gray area, literally, on this graphic is the 2% unintentional undetermined.
I think it'd go under homicide, to where it'd be a justifiable homicide, essentially. If it was a justifiable shooting.
Well, that's part of my. That is part of my question. Is that and I don't know the answer to that, but it is a curiosity I have in it.
Well, you were speaking as if you knew it.
Well, Jesse told me that that's how it was, and
Gotcha.
so I took his word for it. Yeah. But the way you describe it makes total sense to me. Now, again, if an officer shoots somebody, and it's a justified use of force by a police officer, would that be statistically a justifiable homicide? Or would that fall under the unintentional category? Again, it's not an important thing per se. It's just the details of the numbers matter to me because we had 2 3. I don't remember if that was 20 or 21. Maybe it's 2 combined. We had a couple in this same time frame. You know, we had the Anthony Thompson Jr. one, which is absolutely, and it was, you know, Sharm Allen says it was justified, so it's justified. So is that a justified homicide? I mean, because again, there's only 31 in the year, so it's not like,
Right.
Well, if it's,
I would think that's the way it's justified. I mean, because it's not murder. Murder has to show like intent, basically.
yeah, and I mean, you're right, because it's a, yeah,
I think that's how you legally, you know, kind of differentiate.
It's a good point.
Murder and homicide.
But 52% suicide, so 800-ish people in 2021 killed themselves with a gun.
Yeah.
Apparently the biggest scary number in this thing is the numbers are up a little bit. It's not a huge jump, but there's a decent jump across the board. But apparently the by age one,
Just from the year prior, or
from
jump?
the decade prior, I think is how
Okay.
they were comparing it. So it was 2010 to 2020. The under 19, so basically the kids, jumped from like 3% to 8%. You know, and then there's another good stat factor that to put into this whole conversation is I don't know how the growth in gun deaths compares to the growth in the state at large.
True.
You know, because if you know the state has grown 5% and the gun deaths have grown 5%, that seems like it technically hasn't really grown. The gross numbers have grown, but the number as a percentage of population hasn't. So I don't know how that shakes out this whole thing. But apparently the 35 to 64, that age bracket, which is the largest bracket, is also the most likely bracket to have been the suicides. Apparently, most suicides are white males, middle-aged white males.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, then you get to the last one, where it's, you know, a bad person would try to sell as, see, more white people are getting killed by guns than black people. But it's like, well, also the state of Tennessee is like 25% black, and 38% of their gun deaths are black. So that's not a good stat for that. But it's just interesting stat. And you know, then male, female, only 18% are females. That's generally the holds true, especially in the suicide ones. Girls don't kill themselves with guns, like rarely ever.
On average, yeah.
So anyways, it's a big thing from the Sycamore Institute. They don't really do policy stuff. I had some other questions, but I didn't want to take over their show with some other questions on it, because like I'm curious, like one, like I said, how it compares to population growth, but also how it compares to years past and when legislation took place. Because one of the big things that everybody likes to think on Tennessee is like, oh, we're gun crazy people, and you don't have to get a permit or do anything. You just buy a gun or whatever. Well, when these policies took effect, did these numbers jump, or did they stay pretty consistent, or were they growing on the same path? Because the idea,
the constitutional carry went into effect last summer, correct?
Right?
Yeah.
And the idea of, I think it was 2 summers ago now. Yeah, because it was full on pandemic when I bought my pistol, and I got my carry permit. Even though by the time I got my gun and all that kind of stuff, it had already passed, but hadn't gone into effect yet. But I got my carry permit.
So I was saying everything passed, but I thought maybe it didn't go into effect till July last year. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I just remember like when I bought my pistol, they were talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was already going through the carry permit process, and I was like, well, I want to carry. I want my permit anyway, even though I'm not going to need it in a couple months. And I want to say that was 2020.
Yeah. You wouldn't need it in the state.
Right.
That was kind of like
state,
the
right.
caveat that I don't think they really mentioned to a lot of people. And they're like, yeah, but you know, if you go to another state,
right, that requires a license to carry, you have to have a license. Right.
Yeah, because there's like agreement between a number of states that they will accept that state's concealed carry or whatever to be valid in our state. And they're like, oh, you came from Tennessee? Like, yeah, we don't have an agreement anymore.
I mean, we still do. It's just with permit carriers.
For permitted, yeah.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Right. If you're a permitted carrier from Tennessee, then you can carry in North Dakota.
Like, well, no, I don't have to have one in Tennessee. Like, well, you're in Wyoming, buddy.
You do here. I think Wyoming's probably a bad example, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. I said North Dakota, so I'm not any better with my bad example off the cuff. And so there's, I like, because apparently what the Sycamore Institute does with this, they do these kind of things fairly regularly, where they take stats that exist and they compile them. And it's basically just hey, here's some data for you to use for policy. We're not suggesting policy. We're just telling you what it is. So I'm curious what, if anything? Because, I mean, as of right now, they still haven't officially called that special session.
They were supposed to start till August.
But they haven't officially called and given it a date yet. And a bunch of the Republican lawmakers said that they're not going, or they're going to go and say no, so don't call it. There's a bunch of people trying to... that are.
Can they refuse?
I think they have to... Well, I don't know. That's a good question. But I think...
Well, I mean, I guess that separation of power between executive and legislative, I don't know if the governor can require them.
I mean, the same way they're required to be at every other session. And how many of them aren't there and don't vote because they're not there?
Yeah, it's general session, but I don't know if you can make a special session.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. But, I mean, still, it's like, well, if you require me to go, I'm going to vote no for whatever you're asking me to vote for, so don't make me go.
Right.
Because me going... Anyway, so, like, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if he can force them to show up, but it's not going to turn out well for Governor Lee if he forces them. You have to come...
Well, it depends on what he wants out of the session. He's not up for re-election.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, because, I mean, we talked about that already, though. It's like...
I mean, I don't think he would call the session just to make them vote no, to possibly then make them look bad. That's not going to bode well for him in the future.
Because you're right. Because politically for him, he's done with governorship. If he's trying to get appointed to some cabinet seat in D.C. from a future Republican president, not many of them are going to agree with him forcing this special session and trying to push this stuff through. So, like, politically speaking, like, I get it.
Maybe he's trying to play both sides or play more to the moderates, which, most political strategists would probably say there's more of a base within that middle versus...
Sure, but it doesn't get you... It's not, federally speaking, it's not going to get you elected, and therefore it's not going to get you appointed by somebody who does get elected, because the partisans are the ones that... The further partisan is the one that are winning the big show.
No. If he's trying to say that he at least tried, he's like, hey, I tried to have a special session.
This is my legacy.
Get our legislatures together to try to do something.
My legacy is being the Republican who failed to do something that no Republicans wanted to do. I get it from his own conscience standpoint. I get what he's like. If that's a reality, if this is actually,
I don't think it's conscience at all.
Then if it's not that, I don't get what he's doing. Unless he's trying to, unless there is some push somewhere in the state, in the state for a federal representative, be it a senator or a House member, or he thinks he's going to get attached to somebody's cabinet. Because I heard rumor of, which there was nothing really to it other than rumor of, that DeSantis would maybe look at him as a running mate. But I don't see that as a win for DeSantis to attach that to him. Like, Trump pulled Pence out because Trump validated the Christian conservative base. That was the whole point of Pence for the Trump campaign. It's like, you Christians, okay, you're right. Trump's not really a good Christian. He grabs him by the pussy and whatever, that kind of bullshit. But he brought this guy in, and that guy's legit on the conservative Christian right. And that was, I don't know how else to explain the Pence.
Right.
The Trump-Pence ticket.
I don't think that Lee's looking for a vice presidentship or anything like that.
And then what's the... Okay, so but if it's not his conscience that's at play here, then what's the motivation?
To look like he's trying to do something to then placate the growing number of people that say there's got to be something done about this rise in gun violence.
But
we've got to try to look at something. But we can't just throw our hands up and be like, well, we're never going to stop this.
But what's the value in placating if he has no future political ambitions? Because he's done with governorship. What's next? He's going to run for mayor in Nashville or something?
Maybe. I don't know what he would. I don't know what he would consider a step up.
I mean,
I can't calculate his plans.
The only thing that makes sense to me would be a federal job. I mean, it'd be either, like I said, it'd be either an appointment into somebody's cabinet, a Trump or DeSantis or whomever the Republicans get on the ticket, maybe a vice president run. Or it'd be a state senator, a federal senator from the state of Tennessee. So
the other thing I can see is maybe
take Haggerty or Blackburn's job, or wherever he's from in the state. Taking that House seat.
More trying to get into a House seat or into the Senate.
So, but see, I don't know. I think realistically, the political hierarchy of things, a federal House seat is a step backwards from a governorship. I think the only thing above governor is president. Like in the breakdown of the hierarchy of things. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's people that have done it before that have been governors and gone to be like city council members or something after the fact.
Is vice president a step up?
I mean, it's not an elected as an elected position, and I wouldn't count the vice president as an elected position.
You would not.
I wouldn't. No, you're not.
They're not technically voting for you.
Right.
Either. Yeah.
Like I kind of like the old school. Like, let's go back to the old way. You know, we'll primary to the top two, and then the top two go head to head, and the winner's the president, the loser's the vice president. Get some parity action going on here. Something that's a back and forth instead of an ideologue partnered with an ideologue to go on with their ideals.
There's no check or balance to that. I mean, the vice president is president of the Senate, but outside of that, they don't set any kind of policy or really have any kind of power.
True. I mean, diplomatic. They are a strong diplomatic tool. They go out and visit with other dignitaries from around the world.
Yeah.
They are a proxy for the president at large. So if the president is taking care of one thing, maybe the vice president goes out to this other event or shows face here or there. Some national tragedy that the president's elsewhere. Like, so the president's in Japan for a summit, but you know, we have another train derailment in Texas. Vice president might go make an appearance there to show support from the from the feds or something like that. You know, and if that's the 1-2 ticket finish, you know, there could be an interesting dynamic at play. Instead of it being the guy that was elected and then the guy that he drug along across the finish line. I would say yes, functionally yes, to go from a governor to the vice president is a step up politically, but not. I mean, I would say to go from governor to Department of Transportation or head of the Treasury or one of the other departments inside the executive office to get a top level appointment from the president would be a step up politically, even though it's not an elected position.
So maybe that's what he wants.
That's what I'm saying. But then that's my point, is that if that's what he wants, whom of the Republican candidates is going to bring him along and put that baggage on their own race? And it's like, well, he's talking to Lee about being his Department of Transportation, head of Department of Transportation. Now, gun rights and stuff like that have nothing to do with Department of Transportation. But no matter how you slice it, people are going to look at that and say, well, DeSantis is pulling the governor whom was taking away gun rights from Tennesseans. In the political argument of things, reality and all that's a different thing. But I'm saying in the talking heads rhetoric of the way politicians work, they're going to say, well, since he's leaning towards this guy, that means he agrees with that guy's ideals, even though the job he's taking has nothing to do with those things. That still means ideologically the president is on board with those ideals because he's rewarding that person.
I don't think that conversation would be a public conversation if they were looking at appointments to head a department on a cabinet position, basically.
I think that it depends. I think it depends on the specifics.
That whole talking point goes on between the House and the Senate as far as nominations getting approved for it, I believe. Do you have to get approved for cabinet? No, you're appointed to it. Yeah.
But I mean, an appointment. A lot of appointments have approvals. You're appointed to the Supreme Court, but you have to be approved
by the Senate. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's right. I don't think that conversation would happen in the public to then.
I think
those people would have to worry about any kind of blowback.
I think it would. I think it would.
Especially in your example of a transportation.
But I think it would. I would think that a super PAC,
exactly like you said, gun rights has nothing to do with it. So it has nothing to be brought up in.
But it doesn't have to be honest to be a campaign ad. I think a super PAC, like a left leaning super PAC that's supporting Biden in his run. Let's say for conversation's sake. Actually, no. Let's keep it in the primary. So Trump or a super PAC that's affiliated not directly with Trump because it can't be directly affiliated with Trump is running an ad talking about how bad DeSantis is. They're going to say DeSantis is talking about appointing this guy who takes guns away from Americans. They won't say that they're appointing him to the Department of Transportation. They won't say that Governor Lee didn't really want to do it. He won't say any of that part of it. They'll just put that thread in there because it's half true, and they can run with it.
Have you ever seen an attack ad against a candidate where they were talking about
not in the primary?
They're looking at appointing so and so if they're ever elected.
Right. No, I think
you're stretching this pretty fucking far.
Not in a primary. I think I guarantee
even in a presidential election.
I guarantee you, especially if it's Trump, I guarantee you that Biden's appointments will get picked off. They will be picked on and they will be used for ads. 100%.
Again, When was the last time you saw, even when it was down to just 2 or 3 candidates running for the president? Primaries are gone. This is the general.
I would say that
when was the last time you saw an attack ad against a candidate where they
sure
were talking about, well, if they get elected, look at all these people they might bring into their cabinet.
It's just a different.
It's not. No, it's not. It's just not a talking point.
It's a different version of Drain the Swamp. Drain the Swamp wasn't a new premise when Trump said it.
Right.
It's a different version of that.
He was talking about Congress.
He was talking about, I don't know. I took it as he was talking about all of it. He was talking about lobbyists and lawyers and C-suites, or not C-suites, but K Street.
What? K Street?
K Street's, that's where all the lobbyists' offices are.
Yeah.
I think it's K Street.
Oh.
Anyway, I took it as the cronyism inside the revolving door of departments and shit like that is what I took it as this idea that you have Bush Jr.'s Cheney. You have Cheney come out of a defense contractor, come into the vice president, start a war, and his vice presidential run and go right back into being the top brass of one of these defense contractors.
Did he go back to it after he left?
I thought he did.
I don't know.
But either way, you get the point. Those things going back and forth, and I mean, I think you should. I think if I mean, vice president's a little different, but I think if you're running against Bush Jr. and Cheney's his vice president for the incumbent run, this vice president he has is a psychopath, and he wants to keep him. I mean, I think the attack ad is Bush is an idiot, and he's listening to this psychopath. And so if you vote for Bush, you're really voting for this psychopath who's going to get this idiot to do things that we shouldn't do. And that's a vice president, which is a little bit more forthright than what you're talking about, than what we were talking about. I acknowledge. But I still think I think it's valid parts of conversation, and people would have it. I think Pete Buttigieg is going to get picked apart come when this cycle really gets going. Because I think the Department of Transportation issues are pretty significant, and I think he's gonna be the face of it, whether he deserves it or not.
How do you mean?
I just think that just infrastructure issues and stuff like that, the derailment in Ohio, and like Trump was there like a day and a half later, and Pete came out like a week later to see the site and that kind of stuff. Just the simple shit, the stupid handshake, shaking babies, kissing hands. How's it go?
Yeah.
Though that thing that politicians are supposed to do or whatever, but Trump was there like a day or two later with like a truckload of Trump water or some bullshit. Which is, I mean, I'm not trying to give Trump kudos for it or whatever, but I mean, Trump's an ex-president candidate for the next cycle who is on the ground quickly showing face in a tragedy where the Department of Transportation, who oversees the railroads, doesn't get there for a week or two. And as you've gotten,
you know this for a fact.
Yes, I know this for a fact.
Gotcha.
And as I've alluded to many a time, is that the head of the office is going to get the brunt of the actions of the totality of his office. So I think the president is on the hook for what his Department of Transportation is doing or not doing, as all the other different things that. I mean, the president is the boss. It's his job. It's his job to oversee the staff and appoint good quality people to do the job that department needs. And I don't think Pete Buttigieg was necessarily a great pick.
Okay.
But I do think that, especially if it's Trump, I think Trump will pick at that. Plus, it gets to be kind of gay bashing, and Trump likes the gay bash and whatever. Not agreeing with gay bashing. I'm just saying it's very much in Trump's wheelhouse.
Trump's got everything in his wheelhouse.
That's true. There's nothing that's not. What's the other thing I was thinking about earlier? Campaign, some endorsements. Apparently last cycle, Kincannon endorsed all the incumbents on the ballot.
City elections?
Yeah. And even though she is on the ballot now, she's only endorsed one candidate. And that's one incumbent, Lynn Fugate. She's not endorsing Charles, what's his name? District 5, he's running by himself, so what's the point of making that endorsement? And then she's not endorsing Amelia Parker. But Adeem the artist has endorsed Amelia Parker, which I don't know what that means other than Adeem the artist is kind of semi-famous Knoxvilleian.
No idea. Never heard of him.
Country, bluegrass, folk singer. Apparently on tour with a pretty big country act right now.
Cool.
And then all the realtors have put their endorsements out. which
What? Realtors?
yeah, Knoxville Realtors or Knoxville Association of Realtors, which is actually now changed to East Tennessee Association of Realtors or something like that.
Cool.
ETAR.
I guess they have some political sway.
Sure.
Interesting.
I mean, you know, what's the like? I don't know. This goes back to we've talked about this a couple weeks in a row. Like, what do you like? Realistically, to voters, what do you think is the most like people that actually bother voting? What do you actually think is important to them?
Well, obviously, it's got to be housing if they have this
I mean,
political action committee that throws a big weight behind.
it's not a political
elections.
action committee. It's
Association of Realtors.
yeah. They are they are politically active, but like they have a
They don't act as a.
they have a standalone function where they are a training and like they're a training and networking database for realtors that are working in the area to make contact with each other so that a seller can find a buyer kind of deal.
Do they donate to campaigns?
I don't know. I don't think so. They just endorse.
Gotcha.
But like Henson Sale, who we had on the show a while back, he's their PR professional. Like he's the one that goes out and presents and puts all the different stuff together. Because it really is. This one, like, what's the what like top ticket, like functionally top ticket items that city and county have been dealing with for the last 2 or 3 years has been housing. We need more middle income. We need more low income housing. We need more of the missing middle housing, duplex, triplex, quadplex, small apartment complexes, townhouses. We need to get more density on pieces of land so that we can have more housing available. More housing available is going to make more affordable housing available, and so on and so forth. It's been a constant political issue for city and county for as long as we've been doing the show, which I assume it's as long as it's always been a thing. And so you got developers who are probably functionally the most active political players behind the scenes with donations and stuff like that.
What do realtors really? I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but what do realtors have to do with housing?
I mean,
because they're literally
they need it to sell.
They need it to sell, right? But they have no say so whatsoever in the creation of.
I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, they do in the sense that their input on whether or not a certain house or set of houses or something like that will be sellable for a price that is worth developing for a developer would help the developer make a decision on whether or not they're going to develop something. Like that Belltown project going up on Clinton Highway in Emory. Heard about that?
No.
It's a small town. Like it's legitimately a small town that they're shoving in a couple of old farm fields up there. I'm certain that developer in working up this proposal was talking to realtors about like, hey, what kind of housing should we put on here? Do we want to put duplex, triplex apartment buildings, or do we want to put big single family, large, 5,000 square foot, $1 million mansions on it?
You really think they consulted them on that?
Yeah, I would think so.
Hey, we're looking at building something. What do you think you can sell? That's what they're asking them.
Maybe not. What do you think? What do you think you could sell? But do you think it would sell if we built this? Yeah.
I don't foresee them.
So you don't think
talking to the Realtor Association of East Tennessee?
I mean, I think when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar development,
they're talking to commercial developers. I mean, they're pretty much going to go with the highest bidder. I don't think they're looking at what's going to be the biggest bang. Well, they're looking for the biggest bang for their buck, but I don't think they're looking at like, well, should we do smaller 1 to 2 bedroom apartment complex that we can fit in 3,000 people in this.
Let me kind of reframe what I'm trying to say here and see if it makes more sense. They're going to talk to the real estate market as it exists and say, what does a house that has these parameters sell for? And how many of these are currently available in the market? Who knows the answers to those two questions? A 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house. How many of those are on the market in Knoxville right now? Who answers that question?
I don't think they would have all that information either.
I think the closest you're going to get...
They're looking at housing and maybe some like high-end condos that would be a part of like quote-unquote realting.
I mean,
but as far as like apartment complexes and leases and whatnot, realtors aren't going to know that. Realtors are for sale only.
Okay, but a realtor is going to know what a 150-unit apartment complex would sell for.
What? How?
I mean, the realtors are involved in the process of selling an apartment complex from owner A to owner B. If you wanted to go buy an apartment complex,
Yeah, I guess
to then manage,
property buying.
a realtor is going to be a part of that process.
Guess I never thought about that.
But I'm just saying, like, even without the apartment complex part of the conversation, but you're right on that too. That's a little bit more detailed. But you know, if I'm a developer and I bought a piece of land, and I'm thinking about what kind of houses I want to put on that piece of land, how many houses do I want to put in, and what stats do I want those houses to hold? 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bath, 2-story, single-story. You know, what's already available in the market? What when it comes to market gets sold quickest? I think that's another question that a developer would ask, because they want to get that house and that whole neighborhood built and sold quickly. They don't want to have to sit and wait a couple of years, and yeah, eventually it'll sell. But they want stuff that's like, what's the high demand stuff on the market right now, and what's the inventory looking like? I think those would be perfectly normal questions from a developer and a development team that I think they would go to a realtors association and not to a realtor themselves.
Right.
Because the Realtors Association is the one that's going to compile the Coldwell Bankers and the Independent and this, that, and the other into a list of what's actually available in the Knoxville market. Because that's what Henson does. He's not obligated, but he has a standing presentation every month at County Commission where he gives an update on the Knox County housing situation. This many houses sold this month. This many houses sold this month. This many new buyers. This many new constructions started. This many new constructions completed. All those different little stats they put out in county commission meetings every month. And so, if you're a developer trying to answer some questions on what makes sense, I think that would be the people you go to ask. So anyway, going way back, yes, they are very politically active. The real estate industry is, because the other one too is like, what's again, I think to me the number one thing that people actually vote on is taxes, and it makes a difference on the sellability of a house on how much the property tax is going to be. If Knox County jacked up property tax 2 additional % or 3 additional % or something like that, it would significantly slow down the market, and that's not something that the realtors would want. And so they're going to use their sway what sway they have to try to stop that. I mean, they have an ideology. It's just not a traditional, red-blue ideology. I would say they probably lean more Republican just because of the tax thing. But, they also they'd also advocate for state and local and federal spending on housing projects, on assistance to developers to develop things so that they can sell those things, but the developer gets a subsidy to build it so that they'll actually build it. So they advocate for social policies that are, spending policies from governments to help developers build more shit, because that puts more housing on the market, and that means their members that are part of the Realtor Association have more things to buy and sell.
So they have some skin in that game to where, I mean, it'd probably be in their better interest to have more, I guess, like condos that can go up for rent.
I mean, no doubt, and Henson very often talks about how
or condos for sale. Sorry,
right. We need to change we need to change a lot of zoning stuff. He's like he's an advocate, and I think I'm an advocate too. If you get down to it, of shutting down all single family properties. You can have a single family property, but that nothing is zoned for it. Like my neighborhood is zoned single house residential, whatever it is. You have one house that can hold one family. It is against zoning for me to turn my house into a duplex. Or it's against zoning for me to put a outbuilding that's big enough. Like I can put an outbuilding that's a garage, and that's fine because I'm in the county.
Not livable space.
But if I make it into livable space and rent it, not even rent it, like I think in Knox County you could do a garage with an upstairs in-law suite. That's the only way you can have a separated living quarters on your property.
Yeah, I saw something about that recently. I think California amended some of their rules that still had to be within like 4 feet of your property lines, but it could be up to like 800 square feet, I think. But it couldn't be more than like 12 feet high.
Yeah, I don't know. The Knox County one, as I understand, is it has to be a second story, which is ridiculous. I'm going to move my in-laws into so they have to go up a flight of stairs to get into their apartment.
You put an elevator in there for him.
I mean, let me put an escalator and a.
That was kind of that same logic of a quote unquote like in-law suite or whatever.
Yeah, that's my understanding of here. And so, but anyway, like Henson is an advocate of saying, just erase single family property. If you have it, you can keep it, whatever. It's very unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely that some developer is going to come in and buy all your neighbors' houses up and turn it into a giant condo complex, and turn your what is single family neighborhood into a multifamily, a bunch of apartments and condos and shit like that. It's very unlikely.
Not hard to do,
but it would be legal to do, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like. I'm not opposed. Like I don't like again, because again, like what's my motivation in it as a homeowner in this neighborhood? It's like, well, I could let that developer come in and buy my neighbor's house, my other neighbor's house, like 3 or 4 houses on my block on either side of me, and I can just stay here. And eventually they're going to get to the point where they're going to offer me way more than it's worth, like way, way more than it's worth to get it so they can do their whole plan. Or I'm going to be this weird little house in between 2 apartment complexes.
Yeah. Which
would suck. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't like that.
Did your property value go up?
It would for a while. I would say after the fact, if I overweight it, where I have 2 giant apartment complexes on either side of me, it'd probably not be great to have this one small. I mean, it's a big house for the neighborhood or whatever, but this one single family house right in the middle of like 3 or 4 apartment complexes, it probably wouldn't be awesome for my property value. In the short term, it would.
What makes your taxes go down?
Maybe it depends, because the way the properties assessor office and the value of your home are not the same thing. The retail value of your home to sell it to somebody else versus what the property assessor says it's worth is not the same thing. That's confusing, but it's true. Because the property assessor will say, well, if that house, even though it's a single bedroom house or whatever, they'll use comps of nearby, and since the neighbors aren't, and that's what's driving my house down, is that I have apartment complexes on either side of me. Property assessor's office is still going to see what a house a couple blocks away that still is a single family house is selling for. And it may be significantly more than mine could even come close to selling for because of the situation. Which I think is weird in and of its own ism. But I mean, it depends where I'd be in the process too. Like if my house is paid off and my property value goes down according to the assessor and the state and resale value, then sure, lower taxes would be great. Because at that point I'm just paying my land rent from the county,
right,
in perpetuity. So I don't know. Anyway, realtors are getting active in this city cycle, which is not uncommon. It's normal. But the Kincannon it's not surprising that she's not endorsing Amelia, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know. We'll have to see what the other case. She's not endorsing any of the other candidates in that race either.
Just trying to stay out of it.
Right, but she's not. Like she's like the way Scott put it earlier is like she is actively not endorsing Amelia. And so, which is not surprising because Amelia is the only one that has any general pushback on anything that the city of Knoxville mayor's office is trying to put together anyway. So, yeah, that's that. I think that was the majors of what I wanted to cover. What do you got going on? What have you seen? What do you know?
Well, not too much. So a number of people have gotten, I guess, major things have gotten sentenced recently. There's the Pittsburgh synagogue got sentenced recently, and I guess
I saw him
yesterday or today the Texas Walmart shooting got sentenced today.
Yeah, 28 consecutive life sentences or something like that.
90. Yeah,
my bad. What's a life sentence? 25.
Apparently, he's still looking. I guess he's still looking at federal charges that could face the death penalty. He got 90 consecutive life sentences, I guess, as far as state goes.
What happened to Texas? I thought Texas were the number, like, we love killing people. I like that. Not the victims of the thing, but I thought Texas is like punishment in the criminal justice system, like to execute.
I don't know if the prosecutors just didn't seek it at the time, knowing that
they had the feds coming behind them.
The federal may still charge them for that.
I wonder where mass shooters sit on the hierarchy of criminals in jail. Like, you know, like you hear all the time about how like pedophiles and rapists, like everybody hates those guys. Like
Right.
a lot of them end up getting beat, if not killed, fairly early on in their sentence because,
I'd say it would be depending. On,
like, if you're an adult that went up and shot up a kindergarten, that would go under like the you do shit to kids and we're going to beat the shit out of you because you're in here now.
right.
Huh. I don't know. It just kind of just floated through my head. I have no justification or.
I mean, I would say this guy that pretty much just went on like a racist tear is probably going to be viewed well among a small fraction of that populace of the jail, but for I would assume the majority of the jail, he's not going to be held in high regards.
I don't know. I don't know what the El Paso inmate population looks like per se. I would guess that they have a pretty large Hispanic population.
I would say it's definitely not 50-50 white and the rest other.
Oh, no, I would say it's probably like maybe like a 30-30-40. I'm just not sure which one's which. I would say they have a high Hispanic population. They have a high black population. But it's also residence-wise, it's a high white population state. So I would say it's pretty even split.
I wouldn't think so.
For those three. Google.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's basically, for him, it's
I mean,
basically
it'd be
white versus other.
Right, but he'll be likened by a minority.
He's going to be the minority.
Inmate population by race, Texas.
There was 2 kids that I guess beat and killed their Spanish.
Texas at large, 58% white, 44. Well, that doesn't even do math. Oh, whites are 58% of the state population, 30%. So Texas jails are 44% black, 30% white. So that leaves 26% other. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Wanted to run down that.
That's basically what I was trying to say, that he's going to be the minority. And
I just figured there was enough of a Hispanic.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's going to be held in high reverence. I would say among his supporters, he'll probably be held like, "Hey, way to go, man! You went in that Walmart."
Yeah, but I mean, there's systems at play in there. He'll be all right. I'm not saying I want him to be all right. I'm just saying if he's in high regard from that group survives every day before he got there. So that group will continue to survive, and if they actually really appreciate him for what he did, then they'll make sure he survives too, I would think.
Maybe.
Man, it's like was there a TV show about this? I feel like there's a TV show about this.
About what?
A couple movies. Oz, remember Oz on Showtime?
Oh, I fucking loved Oz.
HBO back then.
HBO, yeah. Oz was fucking awesome. It was like a man's soap opera with penises.
It's the only time I really like seeing dick. Cut that out of context and play that on repeat. Anyway, this is another one that's interesting, and I asked Jesse and Scott about it, but they didn't have any real reference. The sheriff's office put this picture up on July 5th. And I don't know, the caption on it was kind of celebratory, like they were feeling good about themselves, and I'm not sure what that means. And so it's a breakdown of their holiday weekend stats. So from 6:30, which was what, Friday last week? Friday or Saturday?
Sure. So
from Saturday to Wednesday morning after 4th of July, there were, I thought it was interesting that they did by code too. So a 1045S, or a 1045 Z, wreck without injury. So there's 21 wrecks without injury. I assume the way to read this is 4 of those involved alcohol. Are you looking? Tell me how to read this to make sure I'm not crazy. So there 1045s wreck without injury. There were 21.
Yeah,
I would read that as 1045s that alcohol were involved. 4 of those 21, not 25 total. There were 21 total wrecks without injury. 4 of them had alcohol. 1046s wrecks with injury. There were 5. 1 of those was with alcohol.
Yeah.
There was 1 fatality, 301 citations, 4 DUIs, 82 other arrests, and 49 assists of motorists.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, like it was captioned as kind of celebratory, and it's like, well, in a 1 week span, essentially, the 30th. Well, there's no first. Is there a 1? There's not a 1 in June, right? It's not a 31.
It tells you the time frame there.
It's June 30
Does
at
it say
6
7,
p.m.
6?
to July 5th, 6 a.m.
Okay. Yeah,
So 4.5 days, 5.5 days.
Yeah.
So almost a week. Like, how many citations do they normally do in a week? Or in a 5-day period?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I don't like. That's what I was asking Scott and Jesse about, and they don't have the reference either. It's like, but like the Facebook page pitched it as a, hey, look what a great job he did. It's like, well, I don't know. Like, how many citations do you normally do in a week? Is that a bunch? Is a bunch a good thing? Goes back to that question that there is no answer to. Is how would, like, you know, we don't get to vote Sheriff Spengler in again, but if he was allowed to run again and we were voting for him again, like, what matrices are in place for a police office of saying that they're doing a good job? Are arrests a good thing or a bad thing?
Right.
So anyway, I just thought it was an interesting little breakdown of the weekend. And well,
Generally, arrests are a good thing.
The celebratory part, I mean, they're just arrests. They're not convictions.
No, they're not convictions. You're correct in that.
I mean, arrest could be a very bad thing if they're just arresting people that didn't do anything and they never prosecute. They're just taking people to jail for a couple hours for no reason. Right. That would be a very bad thing.
Does that happen more often than not?
I don't know if it does or not. I would assume it doesn't happen often.
Right.
But if it's happening at all and you're getting celebrated for more arrests, it's encouraging you to do things not in the greater good of the community, I would say. It's an incentive. If they're like, yes, we did 100 arrests today. Good job, guys. You're incentivized to do more arrests. You know, if on the other end they're coming back and be like, well, only 20 of those 100 arrests were convictions, so you guys need to chill out on arresting people for no reason. Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't have a frame of reference for it. If anybody does, please shoot me some stats, because I'd like to know what a normal week is compared to this holiday weekend.
I agree. They should have left at least last year's statistics.
Right. Because it's like, you know, I would think a game day weekend probably does more than 4 or 5 DUIs. My DUI was on a game. Well, I was PI, but when I should have got a DUI was a game day.
Right.
I would say just a game day in and of itself probably beats those numbers.
Oh, yeah. I guess the number I would find most favorable is a assisted 49 motorist. That
one, and I mean, like, one fatality. I don't know if that's a wreck-involved fatality or if that's somebody got shot, because there were some shootings on. There have been a number of shootings this week.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fatality part of that actually means. I'm guessing because it's with it's all moving stuff. It's all cars and shit. All the other stats are about cars, pretty much. I'm guessing it's a vehicular fatality. But it also puts no frame of reference on that. If that was a drunk driving incident, was the victim a drunk driver? Were they hit by a drunk driver? Did they just drive off the road? Did they shoot their fireworks into their car and blow it up, and then that killed them? Does that count? I don't know. It's interesting stat. What are you looking at?
Huh?
What are you looking at?
A news story.
Tell me about it. I want to hear.
Well, I was wondering if it was the local guy. There was, I think it was a local article about a Knoxville guy that I guess recently got convicted for his January 6th escapades.
I haven't tracked that one that much, so I don't have any particular input on it.
I don't remember the specifics of it. But so another story, I didn't know if that was referencing him, but it was not.
Gotcha.
Seen some orcas causing shit out in the Atlantic.
It's been a while. I mean, they've been doing it for a while. Is it the same pod, or is it just different ones are fucking with people?
Different pods, but apparently it interrupted some kind of nautical race that was going on. That apparently got delayed or canceled at some point.
I'm cool with that, I guess. I don't know. Like, you know.
Oh, it's one thing that it's been like dumbfounding, many scientists. They don't know if they're just acting out or if there was some speculation that maybe it was just like, quote unquote teenagers kind of doing like teen things and just kind of being mischievous. But then others, is it some kind of hatred or retribution for, they've seen boats run into their pod or whatever. So now every time they see a boat, they're like, fuck you, you hurt my friend.
Maybe it's some new materials they're making boats out of that sound and look different to them.
Possible.
I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out. I got nothing.
Trying to remember this specifically. There was a really cool podcast I listened to. I'll have to go back and re-listen to it. I hate to generalize it as much, but there was the kind of thought of whether or not sea creatures kind of have memory, and if they have empathy for other species. And I want to say they found in the Gulf of Mexico that there was a certain set of whales that were protecting a different sea creature, basically another mammal.
I mean, I've heard stories of dolphins and shit rescuing people who went overboard and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know the.
I'm trying to remember, it wasn't sharks. It was something that was some kind of animal that was attacking a certain type of whale, and a bunch of other whales. All of a sudden, they had these calls because most of those mammals underwater, their calls can extend for
miles and miles.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, this big huge pod comes along and starts surrounds them basically, and starts running off because they're bigger than whatever the smaller predator was. Basically, running off these other mammals. But even after a dead one, they still protected it for a day or two, or swimming around it.
Yeah, orcas are fucking crazy. Have you seen this shit where they do with it's for seals and penguins and shit in Antarctica?
Like what?
There'll be a seal that's on an ice raft. And so a couple of them will swim up from one side and just make a wave to get that ice raft to tilt and slide and move. And it's ice, and the seal slides around on it. And then another one will come up from the back as the raft is tilting towards it and slide up on top of it and grab that seal.
Yeah.
Or they'll keep messing with it and break the raft in half. And so they'll functionally shrink this ice raft down until it's small enough that they can just hop up and grab it.
Yeah.
It's that's fucking gangsta.
They're smarter than most people give them credit for.
I mean, I give them full credit. That's why I'm it goes on my list. Open ocean's one of those things I have I don't have a lot of want to be out on it, unless I'm in a freaking big boat.
I want to say in Pacific Northwest, they've kind of detected almost a micro language between certain pods.
So they have dialects.
Kind of. I don't know if it's more of a familial kind of certain calls that they do to one another. I don't think it's necessarily that another pod won't be able to understand them, but I think they kind of have their own certain frequency or whatever that they use to probably better recognize one another.
Right. I know that sound is one of us.
Right. That's my cousin.
Right. That's my cousin. That's funny. That's cool. I mean, I don't know. Animals are cool. They are. All of them. Most all of them. Bees are not cool. I get stung by a bee.
What?
Bees are cool.
Man, fuck you. We'd be dead without bees.
It depends which kind of bee. I don't know which kind of bee this one is. We have I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know. Are ground dwelling bees normal?
Yeah, yellow jackets.
Then it's a yellow jacket. Fuck that guy. I can say that because they're not pollinators like bees are.
Yeah, I don't believe they are.
Yeah, so fuck those guys. Because I was walking through the yard barefoot, and it was just kabam, and it's right in the soft spot, not on the bottom, between the where the ankle bone sticks out and my arch. That super soft thin skin part.
Yeah.
And I was fuck, and I grabbed my foot and flicked him off me, and that stinger stayed in there. So I hobbled back in the house. I was like, baby, do you have some tweezers? Because I couldn't, I don't have enough fingernails. I couldn't grab it out. So
right.
She got the tweezers, pulled it out. But I mean, there's a big welt, probably baseball size on my foot right now. It's a little puffy, and it.
What would you do if somebody stepped on you? Would you swing on somebody that just stepped on you?
I mean, yeah, probably.
Okay.
I was saying it itches pretty badly, but the itch is not as bad as the skin is tight enough that it hurts to walk because I could feel my skin stretching because it's so tight because of the swelling. Fuck that guy. I'm glad he's dead. I killed his ass. But yeah, we apparently they like our yard for some reason. We have a lot in our yard. Big kid gets a couple every year and continues to go outside barefoot. It's dude, put shoes on.
Yeah, yellow jacket is what I got stung with the most. It's 23, 25 stings or something like that when I was mowing back in high school.
Yeah, I've never had a mass attack, but I remember my first. I don't know, bee, whatever, first like sting by a big mean motherfucker. I got stung right in the butt, like right on the ass cheek. I was like probably under third grade because we were still in Florida at the time. I thought I was going to die. I mean, I was like 9 or 8, but I thought I was going to die. I mean, that's still the era of time when I was scared of needles, get shots and stuff like that.
There's still an old Polaroid of me. I was probably definitely elementary school. But I had a big, like, it was like a hornet that stung me like right under one of my eyes, and it was all fucking swollen up. I remember my cousins making fun of me.
That's fucked up. You didn't do it on purpose?
Huh?
I mean, unless they told you to go poke the nest or something like that, because then it's funny. As far as like a cousin family thing.
Oh, no, they saw me after the fact to make fun of it.
Yeah, that's just mean.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if you guys are hanging out and they're like, hey, go poke that thing, and you're a kid and you're dumb and did it,
no.
and then they make fun of you afterwards, that totally makes sense, and that's well, legit.
I think we knew there was, it was like, I think it originally was like an old outhouse, but then my grandparents, like, had it on their property. It's like this small, like, little tool shed. I think we knew there was a nest in there. I remember standing like 10 feet away from it. I think I remember like doing some kind of like weird like karate moves, and like one just like came out and got me.
I remember
maybe I was just swinging.
Just earlier this year, we were working on this under the house concrete thing. I was moving stuff around, clearing some stuff out, and like I don't know, never really paid that much attention to it. Never really thought about it, but like all the different times that some cable provider or whatever has run a line for this house, they just stacked them up. And so, like, there's a border of, like, 15 different cables that are all just, like, zip-tied and stapled to the house. And I was like, this is dumb, because I don't use any of them. And so I started cutting them or whatever. And so there's the box that the Comcast or whoever puts on your house where they do the main split. So the main line comes in, they put it in there, and they split it off to go to the different parts of the house. And so I was like, well, if I'm taking these lines out, I might as well take the box out, too. And so got all the lines of the box out, opened the box up, and there was again, baseball is apparently my reference for the day. There's a baseball-sized hornet's nest in that box. And it was either not active yet for the year because it was still chilly outside, or it had been abandoned in years past. But I did some kung fu moves running away from that thing when it happened. I was freaking out. I ran out, came inside. We got one of those, like, 30-foot spray things or whatever, the special nest sprays that have, like, the super long throw. And so I was out there, like, almost in my neighbor's yard. I doused it. But they're gone now. Fuckers.
No more bees.
No more bees. I need to put it in my bat box. I've been putting that off for a while. Get some of these mosquitoes out of here.
Exactly. I was about to say, they're good for getting those mosquitoes.
We've got a bunch of bats in this neighborhood. I see them all the time. But I got a box for Father's Day a couple years ago. Just haven't gotten around to putting it up. They're pollinators too, aren't they?
What?
Bees, aren't they pollinators?
Bees are definitely, yes.
Not bees, I'm sorry, bats.
I don't think they're pollinators. They spread seed just by like eating like fruit seeds and then pooping them out. Yeah.
And that guano is great fertilizer.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Toxic and a good fertilizer. Yeah.
Toxic?
Yeah.
I mean, you can get...
Is it like trichinosis or something?
Is it? You need a lighter? Oh. Yeah. I guess they talk about that with like caves and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember seeing like in the podcast that was talking about. I think we talked about it here before. The guy that came up with was it like sodium nitrate or whatever, as far as like it being a fertilizer around the turn of like the First World War or right after the First World War. But
right
up until that point, the most common fertilizer was bat shit, guano.
Right. Yeah, it was like people make good money going into caves and digging it out. And...
Yeah. Like that was like the world supply of what most fertilizers were until we were able to kind of like synthesize it and start making the ammonium nitrate or whatever it is. That is technically a fertilizer, but also can be an explosive.
Sweet. People are crazy. People are awesome.
It was just kind of a weird thing of what we used to use. What was considered like a highly valuable commodity was just bad shit.
Well,
because it was such a good fertilizer.
It's one of those things to me, though. It's like I think about it all the time in so many different little random things. It's like, how do we come up with this? Whatever it is. Like bread. Like, who made the first bread? Like, I understand, like, wheat and grains and stuff like that and making, like, a mash. But, you know, like, I guess I think about it this way. So, like, there's a baker or a cook is a, what do they call it? I can't remember how the saying goes. It's a cook is a mechanic, a baker is a chemist, and a chef is both. And the idea is like a cook is combining ingredients that already exist and it makes a new thing on the other side. Where baking, there's like a significant change between the raw ingredients and what comes out the other side. Like, you know, like you put stuff in a pan and you bake it. You know, a piece of, like, you put a dough, a wet, messy thing, and then on the other side you have this airy, light piece of bread. Well, maybe not. You can have dense bread too, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But like, especially in the baking department of breads and cakes and all that kind of stuff, it's like, who came up with this? Like, how do we come up with this idea? Like, we like to watch Time Team going to bed, and it's all like archaeology, especially it's all England based for the most part, which is in and of itself got to be kind of cool. Like, everything you do all the time, you're digging out like Roman pottery and stuff like that all the time. It's like that too, like pottery. Like, okay, when do we get to the point of like, okay, here's some clay. Let's burn it and make a thing more permanent. Like, who came up with that? I don't understand it.
Long
I know.
time ago.
And we've got, like, I understand the idea of like, okay, this part of this jump happened where we went from using coconuts as bowls into taking clay and shaping it into a bowl and burning it. But that jump, and then like all the little jumps on the side, I get, you know, it's like basic pottery into like advanced ceramics and stuff like that. Those are just incremental jumps on top of that first big jump. Those big jumps are the ones that blow my mind all the time. Like beer or bread. Like,
blow my mind more of when we started doing like metallurgy thousands of years ago.
right. Same thing, but I mean, it's the same idea. It's like,
How
we
do
started
figure-
burning rocks and metal came out. And we figured out which rocks had... We could figure out. We started figuring out which rocks you could smash and burn, and more metal came out.
Yeah.
And then you take that metal and mix it with this thing and that thing, and now you have tin, or you have bronze, or you have steel, and now we have iron. Like, that kind of stuff blows my mind. Like, all the first step of it always blows my mind. Like, the advancements make sense to me, but
right.
the first step is the one that blows me away.
So I think I was watched something recently that like the Sumerians almost kind of skipped the whole Bronze Age and almost went, just because I guess they had more access to iron. They were more advanced in the Iron Age, while others still had brass, which kind of helped them militarily take over more areas because they had more hardened weapons.
Because my sword breaks your sword in half,
Right.
and then I kill you. Yeah.
But even like going back to like, there was the I think we talked about once, that Utsi guy, the guy they found in the Alps. One of the I think it was like a small, like little bronze axe, but it was like 99 point something % like pure like bronze or whatever. Of just like the purity of that. So they were able to
the
get
mystery
out.
around that guy's crazy because like a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense about him and where he was and what he had. Like, some of that stuff doesn't add up.
How do you mean?
Huh?
How do you mean?
Because like that pure bronze or
that
whatever.
was period for the time.
Yeah, but not locally, not that high, like not that quality or whatever is one of the things that I remember hearing about. Like, yes, they were in the Bronze Age, but they haven't found examples in locally that were that high quality, except for like chieftains and stuff like that.
Well, I want to say they found it in like, or traces of arsenic or whatever, like in his hair. So they figured that like at some point he had worked in being part of like that smelting process or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember there's a couple of different things that like items that just didn't quite add up into like where was he going? Because like the theory is he was murdered anyway.
Possibly, yeah, or just kind of ran into a foe, basically.
Yeah, but I mean he was murdered. Whether it was, like whether he was running away from it and they killed him in a chase, or whether he ran
I'm
into
sure
them.
they killed him intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And you're like, maybe he just ran into a foe who murdered him. Like, it's not clear if he was running away from or he ran into or like those parts and pieces of it. But yeah,
I want to say because he had like an arrow wound like in his back that apparently like he had pulled out. Either
But
he had pulled
it
out,
healed.
but it had healed, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't even like a fresh wound, but he ended up having like skull fracture on the back of his head. They think was the final blow or whatever. But they also found like different like pollen in his stomach. Basically, like shows that he'd eaten at like a lower elevation, but at a higher elevation within like a 1 to 2 day period.
Yeah, it's neat what they can figure out.
Yeah,
it's real neat.
They had tattoos on him.
Yep.
There's much we don't know about that kind of like time frame of still in kind of like the Neolithic period.
I mean, it blows my mind that we know anything about it, really.
Right, because we're all just kind of like going off of just kind of like deductive reasoning and of what we can find that goes back that far, because there's no written history.
Right. And
I think that was one thing I saw that was kind of like what differentiates, like, I forget the actual like term for it, but it's basically, before we had like written history. What they call, like, I guess, like ancient history,
yeah.
I guess would be something that's like pre before we actually had any kind of writing to actually have like record of it.
Right. Well, because I still think that, like, and that's a moving timeline too, because depending on where you are, like cuneiform was around for a long time, but only in a small region of the Middle Near East or whatever.
Yeah, I think the Chinese have some of the oldest like writing that goes back, because it was like the making of like the paper. I think they used like bamboo silk or something, but they've been able to create like almost like a parchment paper for like centuries before.
Yeah, but I think
many other
one of
cultures
the theories
that
at play
didn't
though
want to
is
share
that paper was for decor and like decor and coding more than it was for writing for a while. Like the paper had existed before writing did.
I don't think they did like clay writing, like the
right.
like,
As far as like writing on paper, air quotes. Yeah, I believe the Chinese were first. I agree with that. I'm just saying that, but I think cuneiform as a form of writing happened before that. But as far as writing on paper, yes. But I think cuneiform was first. First. It's just on clay tablets. What's funny is there's one of them they were talking about. It's like it's a ledger. It's just accounting.
Right, it's
just
like beer.
Standard, whatever, yeah. So this guy owes me this much for beer, and I owe this guy this much for that, and it's like, because again, it goes back to the economics of things. I think that's what makes what we consider modern civilization is economics.
Yeah, it was all an agrarian society. I got curious not too long ago and looked up what all was on the Code of Hammurabi, and like a half to like 2/3 all had to do with like recompensation for like if you wrong someone, like if you
owed a goat, you owed a.
Yeah, but it was more about like land. So like if you accidentally like flooded somebody's thing, you owed them like 3 years worth of your crops or whatever. But it also had to do with like your house slaves or whatever. But it was crazy like how extensive they'd kind of like broke it down. That it was like if your wife did this, or if your wife dies, then you get this, and your wife's family gets this and that. They broke it down like it just kind of went through the different just like possible connections of something happening. I'm trying to break down and trying to make it more monetarily like equal.
Be a fun conversation to sit around and have. Like, is flooding your neighbor's field equal to, whatever this other thing is? And so, like, because, you're going down, you're writing, and you're like, well, that makes sense. But then you're going back and looking at them after you wrote them all out, and you're like, well.
Like, what if you did it on accident? They're like, well, if you did it on accident, then you owe them 1 year of your crops.
Well, not even that. I'm just saying, like, well, we wrote all these out because they made sense at the time, but, man, we really overvalued this one and undervalued that one. Like, that doesn't make sense that, killing your neighbor's cow cost you 1 year of grain, but flooding your neighbor's field cost you 3.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you have to go back and reconcile it and shit like that. I mean, that's modern government.
It's already putting on a stone. It's literally written in stone.
Right.
There's not really amending it.
You got to figure out a way to amend it somehow. But
yeah.
What else is going on recently? 4th of July happened. Nobody died at my house.
Nobody died at my house.
Good deal. It's a good 4th of July then.
Yeah.
We did something interesting this year. So
I thought it was crazy. People were shooting off fireworks like 4 days beforehand. I was like, every single night leading up to it, people were shooting off fireworks.
I was actually kind of disappointed because we were apparently the only people that shot anything off on July 5th.
Oh.
So like,
I heard people like the next it's like 2:00 in the fucking afternoon. I heard fireworks going off, and I was like, why? Like, just wait till tonight. Like you can at least see them.
Do it after dark, yeah, or near dark. we went to the parade, the Farragut Parade, which is always one of my favorites. I always have a good time at that one. There were a handful of candidates for the 24 cycle already doing their thing. Mayor Jacobs was there in a giant camp chair, even giant for him, which I thought was weird. It was just him in a camp chair in the back of a pickup truck.
Weird.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of random. It's like, I mean, yeah, I'm glad. I think you should be here. I think that's appropriate. But
You feel comfortable standing up for the whole time?
yeah, like last year he walked, like he was walking around shaking hands and shit. But I guess last year was an election cycle. He's not worried about an election.
I can sit down this time.
He's termed out. I mean,
I don't need to look viable.
Well, last year he had like 30 people with him, everybody, and vote for Glenn T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. Where this year, like I said, it was just him in the back of a pickup truck. But there were a handful of candidates for this 24 cycle coming up. The Democrats did their float, which is always funny because it's just they had a Michelle and Barack Obama cutouts in the back of a convertible. They do that one every year. Al Gore usually makes an appearance somewhere in it. Although they're the only ones that hand out flags, like they hand out little handheld American flags.
Yeah,
and they're the only ones that do it, which always surprises me. No Chick-fil-A. Was very upset about that. Chick-fil-A usually comes and gives out a free sandwich coupon or something.
It's not Sunday. You guys motherfuckers got to work.
They do it every year. Every year they've been there. Some poor kid in the freaking cow costume running around in the 90-degree heat. Farragut's band was the only band there. There's usually two bands. It's kind of disappointing. Robotics and whatnot does their things. But again, like I said, I found it interesting that you already had a couple candidates. Zachary was there in the flesh. I tried to yell at him and give him my card, and he ignored me. Elaine Davis was there. Thought that was an interesting one too.
How so?
I mean, it's off cycle. There's no real. I don't know what she's. I mean, she was sitting in the back of a truck too, but she had a group of people with her. But I mean, it's a 2-year cycle. She's on the ballot again next year, so I guess it's not that ridiculous. But then what we did interesting this year that was a little different is I just drove up to that Truist Bank on the top of the hill here behind the mall, and we just sat there in the parking lot and just looked out like over the mall, Sharps Ridge, and you could just see all the different like big fireworks shows. You couldn't see downtown,
right?
But you could see a couple of big fireworks. Like, I mean, there were some big fireworks. I don't know if it was like official shows or if it was people with the big budget backyard action going on. But you could see, like big stuff like over the ridge.
Nice.
And it was kind of fun to be up there and do that. And then like there's a couple of people that do some pretty good stuff up here at the ball fields that we check out every year. And so I went to the fireworks store to try to catch some clearance stuff on the 5th, and we did some stuff on the 5th.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we tried to be a little cheap about it. Poor dog. Rowdy is not a fan.
Yeah, I think that place stays open. Did you go one up
Watt Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, I was trying to think of what like the best place to go, because like in years past, it's always like the tent places that pop up.
Yeah.
That I've gotten stuff at. And there was one actually like in the parking lot of the gas station right next door to the big fireworks supercenter over there. But it was all closed. It was closed up because it was after it. I figured I was hoping to go in, like I looked at it or whatever, tried to see if it was open, because I was hoping they were just clearing out what they had and I could get a bunch of stuff for like $15 and have a good time. Alas, did not. Like, I don't like firecrackers are my least favorite. Like, I just don't like I'm not a big fan of just pops. Like, I want lights, and I don't mind some sound, like whistlers and all that kind of fun stuff. And sparklers are always my favorite. My bee sting foot, like a sparkler fell apart and fell into my shoe. So my right foot's just generally fucked right now.
Oh shit.
But like I like sparklers. I don't like bottle rockets plain, because they're the same thing. They just fly and then pop. It's like, what's the fun in that?
Yeah, I don't care much for bottle rockets.
I want to see some lights, and I want sparkles, and
Roman candles are fun.
Roman candles are super fun. I almost got shot in the back of the face. Or in the back of the face. That's a dumb thing to say. In the back of the head by my child, because I taught him how to hold them. I was like, we can hold them. And he kept, like, every time one of the balls would fire, he'd step back. And, like, so we started shooting him standing next to each other, and he kept stepping backwards. And so I'm standing in the same spot, and by the time it's a 10-ball candle, By the time he's on ball 8 or 9, he's 10 feet behind me, and it's like, swoop, coming flying over my head. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Please don't burn my face off. But, yeah, like I said, nobody died. I got burnt, so no losses. I didn't even leave a mark.
Yeah, I just had a memory recently. I almost forgot about somebody that had a bottle rocket, like put it in my back pocket, and like ended up like singeing my fucking like leather wallet at the time. It's like, God damn it, just drunk friends.
I just have I've never done I've never done a Roman candle fight. It does sound like a good time.
I wouldn't participate. No,
I would get a mask as long as I had a mask. I'd wear long sleeves and I'd wear like jeans and long sleeve shirt. I'd play, but I'd have to have a mask or something because you get one in the face, you're fucked. There's no.
I mean, even long sleeve shirt or whatever, like that's like molten shit that's burning at probably like 1,000, 2,000 degrees.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, getting burnt sucks. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want to get burnt, but
it's having fun.
Yeah, it's being a little crazy. It's fine.
Yeah.
Getting burnt's not the worst thing that's going to happen to you. I've been burned a bunch of times.
Yeah, 3rd-degree burn.
Probably.
It's like when like nerve damage happens.
Yeah, probably. I got some of that.
Okay, cool. It was worth it, right?
No, it was a little grease out of the fryer at work one time, and it's like I was holding something and it splattered up on me, and like it was like, well, if I drop the thing that I'm holding into the grease, I'm going to make a bigger splatter, and it's going to be a worse problem. And so like I was trying to set it into the fryer so that I could then go and at least get some water on it or something like that. And then grease and water don't go well together and whatever. But I mean, it was bad. It was real bad. Hurt for a long time. I got a scar somewhere. My old age.
Somewhere. Can't even find it.
Well, my wrinkles and
wrinkles.
My old manniness is starting to take over
Ain't
all
that
my
old,
scars and
motherfucker.
stuff. I'm older than you are.
That you are.
But I'm not that. You're right. I'm not that old.
Like, my wrinkles.
I'll tell you.
Skin's getting all crepey.
Tell you what, closing the bar a couple days a week, or just a night a week is just brutal. I can't do this. I can't do it, man. I hate it.
You've had to close it a couple times?
A couple times, yeah. Like I'm closing tomorrow night. I closed last Saturday. I closed the Saturday before. I closed the Friday and Saturday before. I mean, Max has been doing it every fucking night like a psychopath, but he's getting to the schedule shift where he's getting up at noon. I'm still getting up at 6 or 7 every day. And so, yeah, it's been rough getting up or not closing till 2-ish, getting cleaned up and getting out of there. It's like, oh, I keep joking. It's like, I'm not awake. I'm very rarely awake past midnight. And the handful of times I am, it's because we're in here and I'm hammered and we're partying hard, having a show or something like that. Like I don't make it past
gone
midnight.
that late in a long time.
It's true. Or we do a show in here and I get pretty lit and then keep drinking after you leave, and that keeps me up after midnight.
Yeah.
Like I'm weird. Like I have a weird problem. Not problem with alcohol. I just have a weird ism with alcohol. I get to a spot where like a couple, I can get a little drowsy on or whatever. But like after like 4, it's like it turns like I turn on.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, what's up, doing stuff, talking to people, doing all that thing. Like I get energized after, at beer 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then at like 12, I get dumb and break myself and or break things and fall asleep and
Like, yeah, I can do one more. Yeah, fuck
yeah.
Yeah, let me do one more. All right.
And
Like,
then
I don't
it's
feel
like,
that drunk. Let me do one more.
right.
And the day after, you're like, oh, that was 1 or 2 more than I needed.
Right. And then the day after that, you still feel all twisted in your stomach and stuff like that. And I do that a lot. Like that's my biggest issue with alcohol. It's like I don't drink a lot. I don't drink nightly. I generally speaking anymore, I just drink here doing the show. It's about the only time I'm drinking. But I very often when I do, I'll drink a whole 6-pack down here easily. And then I'll wake up Saturday morning just feeling like dog shit. And it's like I could have stopped at 4 and been fine and still had a good time. But
You were having a good time in the moment. Yeah.
Right. Might as well have another beer.
Yeah.
It is an issue that I have for rules.
Most people do.
Yeah.
Myself included.
I don't like it. So it's because it's just frustrating because I know it. Like I've said it to it. Like I could hear myself in my head going, "Just you don't have to have another one."
All right. It's that other voice that's like, you can have another.
yeah. But it's like that's. But it's just really frustrating because in the morning it's like I should have listened to that first voice, And I do that over and over again, and I still don't listen to the first voice.
Right.
And even in the time, I'm rationalizing to myself. It's like, yeah, the first voice said it, and that first voice is always right. But I keep going. I keep just pushing it off. I have some idiot, stubborn problems with it. I really don't like myself for it sometimes. It's very problematic for me, and I don't like it. And I need to do better about it. That's all. It's just something I have to take control over instead of being a dumbass. Oy.
What else we got going on?
I don't know, man. Like, it doesn't seem like I thought I had a bunch of cool stuff to talk about, but I think we already covered most of what I wanted to do. There was something I was going to send you, and then I forgot.
What's going on in the world?
Yeah, stuff, junk. What's that? The Snipe Hunt's live. Snipe Hunt starts this week, right? Is that what it said?
Yeah.
July, the month of July. Snipe Hunt is in season. 2-bag nightly limit. Flashlights are cool. Spots are not.
Yeah, I meant to respond back to that group text.
I'm not. I don't understand. Have you got? He keeps sending me emails about the quota group stuff.
Right.
And I'm not.
I went to the website, and that was.
I can't figure out how to log in with our group code.
I keep forgetting that's the one that's really far away.
Yeah.
I got that in a separate email.
Yeah, it wasn't in the chat.
That one, it went to like my junk email, but that was one I forgot. That's like up in Kentucky. It's like 3 or 4 hours away. That I'm like, I don't think I'll make that quota hunt.
It's supposed to be amazing, but it's not like they do the raffle does a special in that one too, because that's the one where if you win the raffle, you could pick the Land Between the Lakes one, and there's 2 Land Between the Lakes one. There's a duck and a deer one, but either one they have like a 30-40 foot camper trailer set up and all this, and like side by side and all that kind of stuff you get to use for the whole weekend.
Huh.
And you automatically get a quota hunt for the weekend to win the raffle. I mean, the big raffle is always
that's one that's in Kentucky, so we'd have to get a Kentucky license as well.
Oh, I think Land Between the Lakes has a special because it's on the board, like it's between. I think I think that the Tennessee license works there.
Probably if you shoot something on the Tennessee side, but I think I
think they have an agreement on it because it's an island or whatever. That's kind of between the states. I think it's a share. I think the states share ownership of it or whatever. But I think they have I think it's got a special. They have a special permit that Tennessee, or they have a special agreement that Tennessee hunters can use it without getting a Kentucky license, and Kentucky hunters can use it without getting a Tennessee license, or something like that.
Huh.
I could be wholly wrong on it, but I feel like I remember. Yeah. Stuff and junk and who's it and what's not. No, there's nothing. There's nothing really. Just kind of brewing around. Oh, yeah, duh. The one I led with. Dude got kicked out of the mayoral race.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. He actually apparently lives right around here somewhere. He voted at Bluegrass in the last cycle. And he's changed residency since. But the city code, the city charter says you have to be a resident of the city for a year prior to a petition deadline to be eligible. And since, that election, the last election was less than a year ago anyway, and since he was a resident of Knox County, not the city, he hasn't been a city resident for a year yet.
Huh.
And so they gave him the boot. Which I asked Scott about that today, because I felt like, in talking to Chris Davis and Matt Shears and some other people about it, it's like, I thought that I remember being told that the election commission only looks at a discrepancy if it's brought to their attention.
Right.
Well, apparently there are some base guidelines that they do regardless, and this is one of them. because I asked Scott about
confirmed that you've been a resident for a year.
right, and so like
That makes sense. I mean, they go over their base requirements.
Right. Well, when it gets dicey, though, it's like Briggs did it a couple years ago in Senate Seat 7 or whatever he is. He owns a condo that's right next to the hospital that he was a surgeon at. But then his actual house is in district. The condo is not. And so somebody had lodged a complaint saying, well, he lives at this condo right next to the hospital where he works. And so he had to kind of defend that, and it was a weirdism. But apparently this guy doesn't own two places. He actually sold his house that's in the county and moved into a place in the city. Yeah. And so there is it's not a second property for this guy that he was just trying to use.
Well, I still owned it, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's pretty straightforward. But apparently Scott said he talked to him, and Scott Parker was saying, it's like, yeah, he didn't realize that was a thing, and he understands why he got kicked out, and he may try again next cycle or for a different seat in the 25 elections or something like that. So it's not the last you've heard of Mr. He was the one that got in trouble. Not in trouble, but a bunch of people were all bent out of shape because he owns like one of those pack and ship places or whatever, like a UPS kind of store. Right. And there's a picture of him with a pistol, like it's like an old style pistol or whatever that was floating around. It's like him in like the retail part of his store, like holding the pistol, giving a stupid goofy grin.
For what reason?
I assumed it was some sort of promotion or something like that. Like maybe he was doing a commercial or something like that. It's like price is so low it should be criminal. I don't know. but that was circulating around. You want this guy to be the mayor of your city? And it's like, well, I don't know. Because I don't know. Because guns is a big topic for city elections because there are some things the city can do about gun ownership and stuff like that. Not really much. Actually, I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah, I don't think the city could. Well, I guess they can. I mean, New York City has a zero gun policy. You can't, like, you have to have a triple special permit. You can't. State of New York, you have to have a permit to carry. But inside the city of New York, you cannot carry, period.
I thought that was one that just got struck down.
It might have. I don't know. I'm curious how that
I think it lessened the restrictions because, yeah, I think basically you could own a gun, but you could only carry it if you were going, like, to the gun range or going hunting.
Right, but it had to be in a box, like a special carry case. You couldn't have it on.
I don't know if it
you
had
couldn't
that.
carry it as a sidearm. You'd have to carry it, like, if you're in your car, it'd have to be in the trunk. You can't have it in the cab of the car with you kind of thing.
Not so much that. I think basically you couldn't have it in your car unless you were going, like, to the range or going hunting.
Right.
I don't think you could just, like, every day carry it in your car.
It still had to be like in a container or something too. It couldn't just be like sitting in your passenger seat or in
possibly.
Your glove box.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was more to it.
I don't know what the rules are, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't think the city of Knoxville could do an outright gun ban.
I think legally they could. I don't know.
I just don't think they can supersede the state's authority on the permitless carry. I don't think they can.
They have home rule.
Sorta, not really. I mean, the state's already said that your home rule is not right at doing elections, so fix it.
I mean, I'm sure it would be, it would attempt to be struck down, but I think they have the legal authority to then maybe try to attempt to implement it.
I mean, we can go back to that for a second, though, if you want, because I still think that's weird. I don't know. Like, okay, so that podcast, the PodSave you sent me.
PodSave what?
The PodSave podcast that you sent me? PodSave America? Was it not a PodSave America that you sent me about the...
Oh, More Perfect, I think.
Okay. That's part of the PodSave family. Anyway, doesn't matter. But it was about, No,
we're talking about PodSave.
PodSave America, it does a lot of stuff like that where they're doing politics and like the history of different political events and stuff like that. And how it's shaped the America that we live in today. Anyway.
No, I don't think they're part of PodSave whatsoever.
Okay. Anyway.
I'm sure they would have
apologize.
Mentioned it if they were.
Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But it was the Supreme Court case about like should the federal government and the federal Supreme Court intercede on state election law.
Right.
And that goes to the same thing as this home rule thing in the city to me. It's like, I don't know. Like after listening to that podcast and thinking about it, I'm a little bit more on the fence on what's happening with this. On whether it was appropriate for the state to assert this change in election rules for the city of Knoxville and Morristown.
Yeah.
Like I still think it should be the city of Knoxville to do it, but in the same sense that Tennessee wasn't going to change their voting laws to the right way to vote, the city of Knoxville wasn't going to change it to the right way either. There's no incentive for them to do so. And so if the city has no incentive to do it, to fix a problem, then is it the responsibility of the state to step in and fix that problem? Similar to the idea of, is it this, like, legally to me, it's less of a jump as the Supreme Court case that was talked about in that episode, because there is the idea that the states are sovereign entities outside of the strict bounds of the Constitution. There's at least that idea floating around. It doesn't really seem to practice that way, but that's the idea, where even with a home rule like Knoxville has, the city of Knoxville and Knox County are allowed to exist because the state says they can. Like, they weren't allowed to. You can't write a charter. Who do you write a charter to exist as a county?
Right.
You write that charter to the state. We would like to make our own little government entity here.
I think it kind of comes down to, the extent of where that power reaches. Is, even federally, the states don't have exclusive sovereign rights. That there are limitations to their, sovereign rights as a state.
Right, and because they're right. Yes, I agree.
And the same kind of with the home rule. That for the most part there is, but there are certain things that you cannot supersede the state over on certain areas.
Right, and I guess I could probably read the state constitution to help get a better understanding of that, because I haven't. Because at least the federal constitution has the 10th Amendment, which is basically saying that if we don't say it specifically here in the Constitution, then it is up to the states to figure that out. And I don't know if the state of Tennessee has a similar version of the Constitution that says, if it's not something that the state of Tennessee has a specific ruling on, then a city or county can.
I read through it once, I believe.
I don't know if they have that.
I didn't say anything about a home rule, because apparently it's just exclusive to is it just Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis?
No, there's a couple. There's a couple different places that have it. I think they've nixed it from future use. Like, it's basically the ones that have home rule or grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in, yeah.
Yeah, I think is what I heard. But I don't know the specifics on like how that works. Because I don't know. It doesn't seem to really exist anyway. Like the state writes laws specifically for some of the cities who have home rule. Like, there's so much stuff the state does that is specifically to go to Memphis or to go to Nashville. But I think on the political part, I don't know. It's a weird one.
I would say if the cities, kind of agreed with that, they're not going to fight it. But if it's something that they think that the city and the city residents would not agree with, that's probably where they would bring in that home rule and be like, well, actually, we kind of have this semi-veto aspect of it, and then that we can make our own rules on this certain thing. Yeah.
When it's whether you play the card when it's something worth playing the card for.
Right.
And I think realistically, if you asked anybody honestly, I think they would think that this is the correct move for the city elections. I still think it. I think logically it makes sense. Like, the idea of the way the city currently does elections just seems foreign as hell to me. I remember who I was explaining it to somebody. I think maybe my mom or dad or something like that. And they're like, "What?" So yeah, primary is by district, but for the actual general election, it's citywide. It's like, so, we could primary and this person gets 90% of the votes, but since it's a 1-2 primary, the second person gets in and the rest of the city votes for the second person and completely supersedes what our district did in the primary. Yep, pretty much. That doesn't make sense.
Did see New York City, there was a thing about, I guess they were getting ready to have their ranked choice voting. I guess they were doing that.
Good. I'd love to see that catch on.
Talk to Chris Davis about it.
It's not up to him. It's just good to be. I need to talk to Lafferty and Massey and Briggs and Elaine Davis, which I'll never talk to.
We have the home rule. I wonder if we could establish that just for.
We could get county commission to write a letter, like they did for the mountain name change.
Well, as far as the city elections, I wonder if they can change theirs to just.
The city could. The city absolutely could. Well, yeah, no, the city should be able to, unless the state comes in and says nah. But I think, as things stand, I think the city could change the ranked choice. But I'm never going to get talked to.
I wonder if they can find some middle ground in that versus instead of having this open that you don't so agree with and I agree is kind of odd.
Well, if you're going to do it that way, just have, if it's a what are they? 9, 6 districts and 3 at-larges.
Well, I guess the hang-up is
Just do 9 at
that
larges.
in the general they're still not doing, by precinct. It is still just the general.
Right. I'm just saying, just do it's just at large. Just don't have districts. Just don't district the city. Just say you have 9 at large city councilors. And then you'll have like what'll end up happening. Like, I mean, I don't know. Theoretically, you could possibly have overrepresentation in like what used to be District 1 could have 5 members, and the other 4 members are spread out around the city. If there's a big enough political push inside some subgrouping that turns up, but I mean, with the city's election results, I wouldn't worry about that happening. But I mean, I still think I'd love to see more ranked choice. I think that's a good move. I'd love to see the city of Knoxville do that. I'm never getting Elaine Davis on my show. I've decided. She will not respond to me. Her office will not respond to me.
Yeah.
Eric won't give me a shot at her unless I'm very specific on what I'm willing to talk to her about. And I just I would love to, or actually, and Kim, not Kim Frazier, Rhonda Lee, same thing.
Well, I mean, I'd say
I'd like to talk to her. I'd like to talk to her about the Hallsdale Powell thing. I think that's a great thing that she did, that she pushed that. She made that an issue, and at least people that have to pay Hallsdale Powell water bills understand why their bills are so much. She didn't do anything to bring the bills down, but she at least put Hallsdale on notice that they better get better at this, or there's going to be continued problems. And I think that's fantastic, and I'd like to talk to her about that and congratulate her on that, because I think it's a good thing to do. Right. Then I'd also like to ask her about why she wants to cut money from school budgets and other things like that.
I mean, as far as for either or of those candidates, maybe have a list of questions she can send them and be like, hey, at your convenience, before the election cycle,
Well, I mean,
I'd like to see what. I mean, it's not going to come straight from them. It's it's going to be from their PR people that are going to.
Right, Eric's going to answer it for them.
But I mean, you can at least kind of get their supposed take on it.
Yeah,
you can report on it as such. Be like, hey,
I just want to talk
about this. This is at least is what they're saying. Their statement is on why they did this or how they feel about this.
Right, which I mean,
we can at least get some kind of statement from them.
Right, I messed with that in the past. I got a statement from, I can't remember, what was it, a couple weeks ago? I got a statement from somebody on some particular issue. Was it Lauren? I think it was Lauren. I texted Lauren about something, and I asked her for a statement on whatever was going on. I can't remember what the specific was. But I still it's just not like me reading what they said to me. Just, it's just not, it's not good content for what I would like to do with what we're doing here. Like, I want people to hear them speak, and they say what they think about it.
Right. You're at least getting something out of them.
Yeah. I just say, I don't know. The Elaine Davis one, I guess, is probably the one that bothers me the most. So it's like, she's mine. Like, I did I vote for her? I don't remember if I voted for her or not. But she's my rep, though. Like, she is supposed to answer to me as a citizen. Now, that doesn't mean, I guess, she is obligated to be recorded in a conversation with me. But the fact that I get no answers from them, from her office specifically, is really frustrating. Or maybe actually, you know what? Let me qualify that. I've only reached out to them through Eric. I've not reached out to her directly or her national staff. So that might be a thing. No, pick it back up. You're on. It's almost time for your thing.
Huh?
It's almost time for your thing. Oh, buddy, your tummy okay?
Yeah. That was all out of the mouth.
I mean, I just heard it through the microphone. I usually don't hear it through the microphone. So, anyway, it's that time of night, people. Thanks for hanging out. Here we go.
Australian man plans enhanced games for doping athletes.
I like it. I love it. I love it.
He's not sure if he builds it, they will come. Not blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's see here. Australian-born, London-based businessman is president of the Enhanced Games, a sort of Olympics without drug testing, which he says will obliterate all world records by unlocking human potential.
I love it. I'm not saying that they should go to that for the actual Olympics, but I love the idea.
Well, Daniel Tosh had a funny thing on that.
Tell me.
Oh, it was talking about just like athletes, as far as like there being like doping and stuff. He's like, we should have our own league. Like, just let them fucking dope. Like,
I mean, if there's rules of the game, there's rules of the game. You got to play by the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game say you cannot use substance X, Y, or Z, then you can't use substance X, Y, or Z. But if we want to see the craziest home run hitting whatevers, if that's really what we want to see, then let's see it. And is the value still there for the viewer, for the sponsors, for the people who actually pay the bills for the thing? I'd be curious to know. Like, that's why I'm so excited about this premise this Australian guy's putting out. I'll be curious to know how well it does, if he does it, if he gets it pulled off.
I think he's shooting for it next year.
You know, because if it does, like I don't care about the world, because like he's probably right. They'll obliterate all sorts of world records. That's fine, whatever. I'm not. I wouldn't count it. Like I wouldn't say,
Yeah,
oh,
apparently.
this guy is the new world record holder of X.
Yeah, apparently he's already broken Usain Bolt's, I guess like speed record or whatever.
You know, but I wouldn't
100-meter record.
I wouldn't count it on the record books per se, but I'd be curious to watch it. Be like, oh wow, that is amazing to watch, or oh, it kind of takes all the, you know, the adding the juice takes all the fun. You know, it's not as fun to watch as people on the netch.
Yeah.
I don't know, but until we try it, we don't know. It might be way better, and then we might become this world where you have to dope to play the game professionally, and that would be a bummer, I guess. Yeah, that'd be a bummer.
Totally.
But you know, again,
the only way you can compete and do what you want to do is you've got to take all these other drugs that
it's like
help you in the short
but
term.
it still comes out. It's the same argument about women's sports and stuff like that to me too. It's like when, like we were joking earlier about like the earliest forms of writing that we know to exist is this cuneiform stuff, and some of the most commonly found things are just general ledgers, notes, business transactions. It's like sports is economics to me. Like it's all about the economics of what it is. And it's like I have nothing against women's sports. I'm glad they have women's sports, and I'm glad
it's become made to be. That's not what it originally was.
I mean, what was sports originally? It's war games. It was practice for war, test
In ancient times, yes.
subset test of or at least subsets of aspects of war, and who was the best at one very finite part of war, whether it's throwing a javelin so you can kill a guy from further away, or the shot put because you can throw a stone and kill a guy from further away, or you can run away faster or run to the battle faster.
Well, even the ancient games weren't war based. It was all about, you had speed. You had wrestling, which I guess could be considered a little bit of war. Which most war you're not wrestling that much.
I mean, okay, go ahead. It's a martial art, but okay.
All right. But I mean, as far as like in the battle, you're much less likely to be having like wrestle someone versus just you're hacking at someone with a weapon.
Sure. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying, like, it's specific subdivisions of war, though. It's something in a scrum. You might end up on the ground and rolling around trying to tackle a guy and get him to the ground so he can't hit you yet, and all that kind of stuff. Now, all the rules that go on inside of wrestling versus the no rules aspect of war, obviously. But, you know.
I mean, I can't remember what all sports were actually involved in, like, the original Olympics. I don't know, like, kind of a sprinting or running was, wrestling was. I don't know about discus, maybe. But even that, you're just throwing a discus. That has nothing to do with war.
I think it does. I think you're throwing a projectile to hit people with it. That would be my assumption. Pole vault is getting over walls.
When the fuck was a warrior ever throwing a discus in which to try to kill someone?
I mean, they're throwing
that was not
something.
A thing. No, that's not a thing.
Okay. Projectile weapons
projectiles are a thing, but as far as like someone's spinning around in a circle trying to throw a discus towards the furthest point.
Now, the spinning around in a circle, I believe, is a modern adaptation of the sport. I don't think it was originally where they did the whole little circle and ran around and spun and threw. I think that was a development over
You're
time.
not getting anywhere unless you're doing centrifugal force, so I'm assuming that they had the presence of mind. If they're going to make a sport, they're going to figure out the most basic way of throwing it.
How long did the high jump exist before the Fallsbury flop?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know when the high jump came into.
So the high jump existed for many years as a sport, which I would still argue is probably a war-based sport, but whatever. As jumping over fences. It's jumping over fences. That's what it is. But anyway, jumping over fences.
That's something that was done in wartime either. We didn't jump over fences.
But anyway, the high jump existed for many years where it was more like a hurdle than it was what we know as of today. The Fallsbury flop is where you run up from the side and you jump over it backwards and kick your feet up to clear the bar. That's the Fallsbury flop.
Okay.
All right, so the sport of high jump existed for 20, 30, 50, I don't know how long before this guy came along, and it's like, read the rule book. The rules say X, Y, Z. They don't say anything about going over backwards. I think I can do better and go higher this way. And he did. And then everybody that continued to play the sport played the sport that way because it was a more effective way of doing it.
Right.
So the point of bringing that up is that I don't know how the shot put could have been just throwing a rock, period. And as the rocks got heavier, people figured out that they could throw them further and keep their shoulder intact by doing the push instead of the baseball style throw. I don't know how the development of what we know of the sport is versus how it originated is close to the same.
Right. I'm just saying that I think it was more of a sport than militarily based.
Okay. I disagree, but okay.
How?
I think
How do you think?
I think it's I think a lot of what the original Olympic Games, which is most of the track and fields events as we know them, started as sitting around war camps with a bunch of soldiers, fucking around with super specific subset of skills that happen in war. I mean the simple example would be the javelin, because it's the javelin as a sport doesn't care about accuracy. But it cares about distance. And so it's a bunch of guys
you're not throwing spears in battle. You throw your spear, you've just lost your weapon.
Sure. But people have done it. And again, my point is you have the spear that you use as a weapon in actual battle, and that morphed into a throwing game as part of soldiers hanging out, killing time, waiting for the next battle to happen. And it's a very subset specific. It could happen in battle, and I'm sure people do throw spears from time to time in battle, although it's not the most logical thing to do. Or at least you throw it and then you pull your sword out, because now you don't have your spear anymore, because you're right. You just lost your weapon if you throw it. And or you gave it to the other guy, which is not a good move either. My point is that I think most of the original Olympic Games started as camp games with warriors at camp. And they were fucking around with the tools and toys that they had as part of war and made it into a competition. And they morphed into the games that we know them to be now.
I think on a certain level, there's always been a competition of who is the strongest, the fastest, or whatever. And I said city.
I mean, I think the Highland Games is the same thing, and that's an ancient set of sports. I think most of those are the hammer throw. I guess I don't know. The hammer throws theirs. Barrel toss. I don't remember.
Yeah, none of those are really. Again, none of those are.
But I still think that
the majority are not war based.
I think they were.
They're showing feats of strength. To where in that, I guess that would then behold you as a better warrior. But that it's not. The actual events themselves are not based in like wartime acts.
All right.
Especially if you want to bring in like the Highland Games, where the guy's got a fucking like telephone pole that he's like walking.
Caper toss?
Yeah, the caper toss, where he's trying to flip that over. Oh. You're not doing that shit in war.
I don't know. Let's see.
And the same thing you're talking about with the hammer throw, where you're trying to like throw it over the highest little point, almost like a high jump of throwing something over this. Not based in war. Trying to carry a stone the furthest amount. I mean, so that's a feat of strength.
All right, so just a quick Google search. The sport of caper toss originated in Scottish Highlands. The Gaelic word caber or caber means rafter or beam. And during military campaigns, such large beams were tossed across often ice-cold streams to provide a temporary bridge for soldiers. Just saying. I just throw it together. All right. The history behind it. I mean, I think a lot of them are like that. They're little subset weird things that turned into this, a bunch of testosterone fueled dudes making competition out of it. Where did we even start on Olympics? Oh, get
juiced.
Getting juiced. So, but anyway, I was going on to the economics part of it. Like, I think the economics are what matters. It's what people want to pay to see. And I think there is part of I'm curious enough that I would at least watch a little bit of these juiced Olympics. But I think
I am surprised that there's not more competitions out there that are this. And like, hey,
well, I mean,
we want you to come do this. We don't give a shit if you juice. Like,
you'd have to put in
come on out and do this.
I don't think you could do it in Australia. I don't think you couldn't do it in the States.
Why?
Because I think because you have gaming commissions and stuff like that won't let you do it. It'd be illegal.
Why? Because
you have to have there are the state of Tennessee or the state of whatever, and or at some level, somewhere in it, the state of Tennessee.
It's just not sanctioned by them. Doesn't mean you can't do it.
I don't know. That's good. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to say that it's an approved record or this is approved by the TSSAA or whatever.
I don't know because I'm not sure because I think that they're like, I think that other than like a backyard, back alley, bare knuckle boxing or whatever, but in any sort of like commercial format, I think you'd have to get permission. At least in the United States and some other major countries. I don't think you could just do...
To put the event on, possibly, yeah. Or definitely, you've got to have like a permit to put this thing on.
Not even that, just to say that the event is this and the people are coming to spectate this. That I think that you would need permission from the state for the event that you're spectating in, not just the idea of putting stands up and letting people watch.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because I'm trying to think like like the state of Nevada is a big one that always gets talked about at their gaming commission as far as they're looser and they've been very I take that back. Early on they were not friendly to UFC because they had so much money in boxing. But like UFC they follow all the anti-doping procedure and stuff like that to this day. Like one of the big things Rogan talks about all the time when he hates on some of the stuff that Nevada does is like the Nevada Gaming Commission assigns the judges. It's like, well, it's a private event from a private company, the UFC. They don't get to put their own judges on. The state of Nevada does. The state of California does when they do California events. He talks about that a lot. Like, because a lot of his complaint is like these judges don't know the specifics of these subsets of martial arts that these guys use in MMA. A lot of them are boxing judges. And so they don't know how to judge these things right.
Right.
And so,
I mean, I can see it from the aspect, I guess, of that gaming commission of if you have a private entity that is coming in that wants to bring in their own judges to then decide something in the state of Nevada that has had gambling legalized for many years.
But it's like, right. But
that's where you have that possibility of inside gaming.
All right, but on the Nevada side, sure, I could see what you're talking about.
We're going to bring our own judges that they could decide the match.
They want to protect the integrity of the gambling part, but it's like Louisiana or California, or other places that they hold events. They have to go to the California Gaming Commission to get permission to put a fight on. That's part of the whole like Fight Island thing that he was doing.
Considered a sport, yeah. Huh.
Like there are sanctioning bodies in all states to like have a like. And again, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, like me and you can go play a football game out in the field somewhere, and nobody can say anything about it.
Right. When it's an organized event.
Right. It's an organized commercial event. I have to get a business license to sell tickets and all that kind of stuff. They're going to get their say in whether this is allowed. So anyway, you just go to the Philippines or Manila or something like that. I think you can make it happen. I just don't think you can make it happen in Australia.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, I don't know, because I think there's good arguments on some of the I think there's straight steroids which are problematic, but I think there are some arguments about some different parts and pieces and stuff like that get weird, and I think that there's some stuff that they're over. Like, I think NFL, at least till the last couple of years, they're like they were still like it's like a 6-game suspension if you get caught with marijuana in your system.
I did see the NCAA was trying to take away marijuana as being a reputed drug.
I think it's fair. I think it should be treated like alcohol. The problem with marijuana is the testing procedure is too long.
Right.
It's too long of a window. You have had.
I don't think anybody would argue that it's a performance enhancing drug.
Well, I don't know. Like Rogan's talked about it as he thinks it is in some ways. In that in post fight or post workout kind of stuff, it's a good way to like relax and let your muscles chill. I'd
say the same thing for a sauna and a massage.
Sure, but a sauna and massage are legal,
right?
And weed's not,
right?
That's the I'm not saying it.
But as far as it being on the level of a performance enhancing drug,
right? But a sauna and a massage are drugs either. But you're allowed to take an aspirin or whatever, or ibuprofen to combat inflammation, which CBD and marijuana do great for inflammation too. But aspirin or ibuprofen's okay, but weed's not.
Yeah. And
so, again, I think there's room to talk about some of the stuff that's banned and how it's banned and why it's banned and stuff like that. And I think there's something to be said for especially college kids. who cares? You know, like the same thing we talked about. Like, you know, if I want to go to Nevada and gamble,
Who cares?
if it's legal in their state, who cares? I mean, why? Like they like if you're 21, if you're a UT football player and you're 21, you come down, you go down the strip and drink after a game.
What are you talking about? You talking about doping being okay?
No, I'm talking about weed. I was still on weed.
Okay, gotcha.
But I think there's some other things that are on the list of stuff that
That's what you kind of prefaced it with, and I was like, wait, what?
I think there's a lot of stuff on the list that could be broken down and maybe because like there's some stuff that like, you know, like as far as like recovery from, especially from like injuries and stuff like that are considered in the steroid family, but are really good for helping people recover faster. Just not, you know, like you still have injury time, but instead of it being a 6-week missing time for 6 weeks, you're only missing time for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because certain things can help you heal faster. Now, in an injury situation, I could see that as being okay, whereas doing that every day or right after every workout, the HGHs and whatnot. You know, so I don't know. I think it's weird. We did have the swimming thing. I never saw anything about that. Did you see anything about the swimming protest at Pat Summitt's statue?
Huh? Swimming thing now.
Or not swimming, biking. The biking, there was apparently some trans athlete that had been competing, and I don't think this trans athlete came in and competed in the bike race that was here, but is on the circuit. And
I thought I read a story. There was like one person in this USA cycling thing.
Well, there's one that's done. There's won a couple races and stuff like that, whom has gotten about a lot of backlash from people that don't like the trans community. And I think it's a valid conversation to have. I do. I just do. I think it's like, you know, in the very throw my hands up. I don't fucking care. It's like, why do we have gendered sports? We have gendered sports because there are physiological differences that make him an unfair game when boys play against girls. There are some that are girls. The girls are the advantage. Not many, but there are some. Like, you're not going to see a lot of dudes kicking ass and taking names in the uneven bars and gymnastics. But for the most part, in most sports, because most sports are built around strength, speed, guys are going to win. Specialized guys in that sport are going to beat specialized girls in the same sport.
Right.
9 times out of 10.
My really thought on that is you can also make the same argument of someone that's, you know, a foot taller than somebody else. They're going to have that advantage. Or
Right.
someone that just has more, you know, musculature.
But there's no
than
outside,
someone else.
There's no outside influence on that, on at least the height one, or base muscle mass. Doesn't have an outside influence that is changing that. I mean, you can have an outside influence on your muscle mass by working out and exercising more, but your base skeletal structure and your ability to carry it's going to change.
I almost had an article that was some recently. I'm trying to remember what they're called, but it's basically those people that are essentially like in between. They're like it's not asexual.
Hermaphrodites? Well, that's just
it's kind of included in it. I wish I could find it. It's basically people that have, like, you know, an XX with like a little bit of Y, or.
I mean, I acknowledge that it's complicated. Sure.
And that's the thing. I think it goes beyond just like the whole like male-female thing. Is that there are a lot of factors that go into of what makes someone a great athlete. And again, a lot of it can come down to just straight up genetics.
Sure.
You come from a family of.
But I still think you take all those factors, all things being equal, other than gender. Or well,
like all things being equal, all things aren't equal.
Right. But even if you take, like, because I mean, again, you take like the simple generic examples that are thrown around right now. Like Serena Williams has said it 1,000 times. She's like, I would never want to play Andy Roddick because he would murder me. And that was when he was one of the best in the world, and she was the best in the world by far.
Right.
She's like, no, I don't want to play against the boys. I will have no chance. I'll be 200th in the world. There's guys that you've never heard their name of on the tennis circuit that would kill me if I was playing on the boys' side. And that's, you know, she was the best in the world. She had the best training. She was just the best. No doubt. She's the best female tennis player ever to exist. But we have to add the caveat, female tennis player. We can't just say the best tennis player to ever exist because that's just not true. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not trying to hate on anybody for it. It's just a reality of it. And if we're going to try to make sport equal-ish functional, like again, what was the point of making gendered sports? The point of making gendered sports was to make it a competitive game. Girls softball.
For the most part, it was allowing females to even play sport.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, again, but you had to have the division. You had to have the sub bracket. Because it's like, I mean, the other one would be like, like, and again, in the argument absurdum, or whatever you call it, it'd be, well, like, I want to do, I'm 150th ranked in the world in street bike racing, right? I want to go race against the 15-year-olds. There's a reason you have age brackets in certain sports.
Sorry, intersex was the term I was looking for.
I'm saying there's reasons we have age brackets in certain sports, non-professional sports.
Right.
There's not a lot. I mean, I guess there are professional bicyclists, but I mean, the U.S. biking circuit has age classes. There's like a senior circuit where you can't race in that circuit if you're under 55 or something like that. It's like, well, yeah, because a 35-year-old at the top of his game is going to just trounce all over 55-year-olds. It's just the way it is, And so I don't know. I don't quite understand it. It's like, anyway, I didn't mean to go to the rabbit hole. I want to see the Juiced Olympics in Australia just once, and then I'll have an opinion on that on the other side.
Apparently he wants it to happen, so we'll see.
Cool. Keep an eye on it. I want to see it in the flesh. That's the show, everybody. Yeah, I didn't want to go into trans athletics, but we did, so that's what we do. Anyway, Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Eventually there'll be a voter guide 22 there. I guess, or 23. I guess I can get around to it now because I have one less person to put on it. That'll make life a little bit easier for me. Go to the website, share the website with your friends. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Get us there. Please subscribe and share that with your friends as well. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. That's a place to communicate with us. Almostagreement.com as well. I'm sorry, almostagreement@gmail.com as well. Shoot us an email. Ask us some questions. Tell us we're stupid. I don't care. I just want to talk to you guys and hear what you guys have to think about what I think about things. So, anyway, Almost Agreement, everybody. That's the show.